Chapter 508 Accident or Assassination. Just like that, Michael killed 2 vampires. Then, while the vampires were stunned, Michael took a glimmering silvery vial from the system storage. Clang! Michael threw the vial at the ground near the vampire. The vial shattered until countless tiny pieces of glass as a puff of white smoke engulfed the air between Michael and the vampires. It burns. My eyes. Suddenly, the vampires began running around the hall, clenching their eyes and screaming. After taking Victor's blood samples, Michael brewed the tear gas to disorient the vampires. Michael did not dare to waste any time as he cast the lightning dash. This is our chance. Push forward. Eve raised her hammer, roaring a battle cry before running toward the vampires swinging her hammer. Cut their heads off. Eve felt a chill when she heard Ghost's voice sounding in her ears. It took her a second to realize that he had run past her, and she just couldn't see him but only the golden trail beside her. While Eve, Alicia, and Ghost were fighting the disoriented vampires, Gabriel and Leylon made a break for it. They cautiously went to the hall's corner and walked to the other side, remaining so close to the wall like a pair of geckos. Blood tornado, blood hole, among the 18 vampires. 2 of them stopped running and raised their hands high in the air, casting a spell before Michael could stop them. As soon as they cast the spells, the room was lit with red as though the chandeliers radiating red light instead of white. Additionally, the bodies of Eve's guards squirmed. Soon, all the blood inside their bodies was sucked out from their bodies to form a mini tornado in the middle of the hall. Michael felt his speed decrease due to the tornado countering his spell. His running speed was further reduced when a red hole appeared in the ceiling, sucking everything into it. The red hole sucked everything in the room, such as chairs, remaining bodies, and portraits of various alchemists. Aishan held Alred's body in one hand and a lion statue which was too heavy for the red hole to suck. Jenny! Eve kept spinning her hammer, fighting the creating a counterforce to the red hole, and shouted at Jennifer. Fortunately, Jennifer and Olivia found a statue similar to the one beside Aishan and held onto it with their life. Since Gabriel and Leylon were sticking close to the walls, they were able to grab onto the window grill. On the other hand, Alicia stabbed the spear through the floor and held onto the spear. Then, while spinning the hammer, Eve noticed Ghost sliding towards the tornado swirling beneath the red hole. Ghost! She tried to reach for him even though he was at least 10 meters away from her. Yet, even at this very moment, Eve saw no fear or concern on his face. On the contrary, surprisingly, when she shouted at him, she saw a smile emerge on his calm face. She felt creeped out by his smile. How could a man smile in a situation like this? Her mind couldn't find an answer to her question. Then, as she was staring at him, she noticed he suddenly stabbed the floor with the sword in his hand. The next moment, he threw the sword against all the force at the vampire who cast the tornado spell. The sword he threw soared through the air like an arrow until it pierced the vampire's forehead. Immediately the tornado disappeared from existence along with the sickering red ambience. Although the tornado went away and gave them breathing room, the remaining vampires were able to dash at them freely. Unlike Michael and the others, the red hole didn't have any effect on the vampires. Several vampires targeted Alicia since she had Heaven's Flame. They wanted to kill her while she was fighting the suction force. Only a couple of vampires targeted Eve because the vampires deemed her as the less threatening one among them. Her blunt weapon was basically useless against them when she fought them alone without Alicia. All the remaining vampires moved towards Michael. As far as they were concerned, he was just as dangerous as Heaven's Flame-wielding Alicia, if not more. Seeing 5 vampires moving towards him, Michael raised his finger. Ignitia, the golden lightning bolt shot out of his hand, piercing through the vampire's chest. ARJ! Out of the blue, a scream reverberated in the hall. However, it didn't come from the vampire with the hole in his chest but from Gabriel. Unfortunately, Gabriel was in the lightning bolt's trajectory and got hit by the bolt in the hand. Hence, he let go of the window grills, resulting in him being sucked into the red hole. Teacher! Leylon shouted at Gabriel, but it was too late as Gabriel was flinging towards the red hole. He flew towards the red hole like a kite without an anchor until Alicia grabbed Gabriel by his hands. Don't let it go! Gabriel shouted. On the other hand, Alicia's spear began to tremble as it couldn't support 2 people. Ignitia! Michael kept firing lightning bolts at the vampires to keep them from reaching him. This time, none of the lightning bolts hit others. Your hands! Slipping! Gabriel shouted, feeling his grab loosening. blessing hands. Suddenly, a giant golden ghostly hand flicked Gabriel with enough force to send him flying onto the other side. I got you in the midway. Michael grabbed Gabriel by his hand before Gabriel could fly over his head. Teacher! Jennifer cried out loud when she saw Alred's lifeless body disappearing into the red hole. Only then did they realize that the spell was cast by Xiaofan. He sacrificed Alred's body by letting him go so he could cast a spell to save Gabriel. Xiaofan held no love for Gabriel, but he was unable to let Gabriel die when he could save Gabriel from death. Tears gushed out of Jennifer's eyes as the memory she had spent with Alred flashed across her eyes. Hold me tight! Gabriel shouted at Michael. The swag Gabriel had was nowhere to be found on his face. At the moment, Gabriel shivered and sweated, fearing for his life. I want Lord Gabriel, Michael raised his voice. Gabriel's heart was pounding against his chest. He looked around while holding onto Ghost's hand to see 4 vampires walking toward them. To inflict maximum fear, the vampires showed their teeth, slowly walking toward them. On the one hand, Michael held onto the sword, and on the other, he had onto Gabriel. Hold tight, Lord Gabriel. Your hands are slipping. Michael shouted as the vampires devilishly grinned. No, 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 no. Gabriel frantically shook his head. But, unlike Ghost claimed, he didn't feel his hands slipping. For a moment, Gabriel saw Ghost's lips curling upwards, revealing an evil grin. It's slipping, Lord Gabriel. I can't hold much longer. The grin instantly disappeared from his face. No! Gabriel shouted as Michael let go of his hands. In a blink of an eye, the red hole sucked in Gabriel, killing the previous #1 alchemist of Elon and Azer continent. Sponsored content. Visit Readel. Me for extra chapters. Ugh. Finally, Alicia had enough. The next moment, she pulled the spear from the ground. As soon as she did that, the red hole sucked her in, but in the mid-air, she threw the spear at the vampire who cast the spell. The spear cut through the air with enough force to nail the vampire into the wall behind him. Luckily, before she could disappear into the red hole, heaven's flame surrounding the spear rendered the vampire into a pile of ashes. Teacher, no! Leylon screamed. All the veins in his face bulged as his eyes turned blood red. Holy blast, holy blast, holy blast, holy blast, holy blast. He was enraged by the loss of his teacher. Thus, he went berserk by shooting plasma blasts at the vampires one after another. He didn't care if he was hitting them or not, but he just kept casting the spell. In his anger, Leylon lost the fear of vampires. The man who picked up from the streets and raised him as his own just got killed in front of his eyes. Hence, Leylon was enraged beyond words. Since the tornado and the red hole disappeared, Michael cast lightning dash to disappear again. Pulch! 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 The vampires only felt a gust of wind before they saw their friends losing their heads. Michael used celestial energy to increase his speed. Therefore, the vampires had no chance of seeing him or reacting to his speed. Eve saw several heads rolling on the ground as the headless bodies sprayed blood all over the marble floor before collapsing to the ground. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 3,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 3,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 3,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 3,000 badass points. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is Soul Refining Stage Level 4. The notification sound of the system kept ringing in his head continuously. Finally, after cleaving 9 heads, Michael reached the next level of the Soul Refining Stage. The remaining 5 vampires looked paler than usual in fear. No longer they treated Michael like he was not a significant threat. They never expected Michael to kill 9 vampires in a few seconds. If the vampires crossed the void line, they would be at the core formation stage. Besides, they were also freshly turned by the elder vampire, so they had no battle experience like the others. Because of these reasons, Michael killed them so effortlessly. Even Michael was surprised at how easy it was for him to kill them. At this point, Michael was confident the elder vampire was treating the alchemy competition as a training ground for the newly turned vampires. The question was whether the elder vampire really here to take revenge for exposing their existence or for something else. Arg! Meanwhile, Eve crushed a vampire's head with her hammer, and Alicia killed 2 more vampires with lightning-quick speed. The remaining vampires stood no chance as Michael made quick work on them. The headless vampires staggered as blood sprayed out into the air from their necks. While the blood was raining down, Alicia saw Ghost walking calmly towards Eve. The latter was breathing heavily after a long battle. However, the battle was far from over. Boom! Suddenly the wall near the door they walked through exploded into bits and pieces, creating a cloud of smoke. A figure came flying through the smoke and landed near Alicia. Noah! Chapter 509. Taking a risk to get stronger. Michael saw Noah coughing mouthfuls of blood while struggling to get to his feet. His pure white robes were smudged with mud and blood. Noah! Alicia screamed as she went to her knees. She immediately flicked her wrist to take out a blue healing potion. Following Alicia, Xiaofan came running to Noah and tried to help him up. But unfortunately, Noah really seemed to be in bad shape. There were numerous claw marks, cuts, and bruises on his body. Since Noah was just in the core strengthening stage, the cultivation gap between the vampires and Noah was not as big as that between Michael and the vampires. But because Noah battled more than 20 vampires with no help, the vampires didn't number on him. After Alicia chugged the healing potion down Noah's throat, the bruises on Noah's face slowly disappeared as the rosiness returned to his face. "We have to go." Noah slurred due to internal injuries. They could barely distinguish the words that escaped his mouth. Boom! Suddenly the door Michael blocked exploded into bits and pieces. Through the environmental map, Michael sensed the vampires rushing into the hall. "Olivia, Eve!" Michael raised his voice, drawing their attention to him. "Run now!" But Olivia tried to interject, but Michael's face twitched, wordlessly telling her to shut up. If push came to shove, Michael could always teleport away. However, teleporting Eve and Olivia would raise unwanted attention of Noah and Alicia. Besides, although fighting the vampires was risky, killing them offered him precious experience points. By utilizing the situation, Michael planned to have another breakthrough. Getting stronger was the only way he could fight his future enemies. But to become strong, he knew he had to take risks. "Jenny, quick!" Jennifer did not waste time arguing with Michael. Ghost might be a good friend to her, but her little sister's safety was the most important thing to her. Hence, Eve grabbed Jennifer and Olivia's hand to rush toward the door on the other side before the vampires could pour in through the blasted door. "You 3 should go too." Noah finally picked himself to his feet. Leylon gave a stare to Michael before running behind Eve, leaving Xiaofan and Alicia behind. "Where is Norvin?" "I sent him away to call for backup," Alicia said as Michael walked towards the door. Even went through. Noah noticed a wooden bucket appear in Ghost's hands. "There is no time. Leave. I will hold them off as long as I can." Noah's words reached Michael's ears and surprised him. Michael wondered what the hell was going on in Noah's head. He was planning to stay back to fight the vampires because he needed experience points and had an escape plan. However, Noah needed no experience points or seemed to have no escape plan. "No. Come with us." Alicia's eyes watered up as she frantically shook her head. "Do not make me pull ranks on you, Alicia. Grandmaster, please take her with you." Meanwhile, Michael splashed the liquid in the bucket onto the door. Immediately, the air became thick with the smell of oil. The smell indicated what Ghost was planning to do. Noah pushed both Grandmaster Xiaofan and Alicia towards the door. "Why are you staying behind?" Noah asked Ghost. To Noah, Ghost staying behind was a surprise. Alicia forgot to throw a death glare at Michael in her concern about leaving behind Noah. "Where are you, Piggy?" The bone-chilling voice of the elder vampire sounded in their ears. "I can't let you have all the fun," Michael responded to Noah with a smile. Then the moment Alicia and Xiaofan stepped outside, Michael closed the door. With a snap of his finger, Michael sent a tiny bolt of lightning to the door, causing the door to get on fire immediately. As the door was burning behind them, Michael and Noah walked side by side for the first time as their long coats fluttered in the wind. On the other side, the elder vampire shrouded in red mist hovered through the hole where the door was, followed by several dark-robed vampires. "We cannot fight him in a closed space like this," Michael whispered to Noah. Looking at the elder vampire and the others behind him, Michael's instincts told him they were not as weak as the vampires he killed. The last thing Michael wanted was another red hole in a closed space. So instead, the ideal place to battle them would be in the open. "Just the 2 I want," the elder vampire snarled. Unfortunately, because of the shroud of mist around him, Noah couldn't see the elder vampire behind. However, Michael was able to because of his X-ray vision. Thus, Michael saw the elder vampire raise his hand. And the moment Michael saw the vampire snap his fingers, the entire hall trembled. Boom! The hall exploded from within. Soon, the building crumbled down. Lightning dash. Michael immediately cast the spell to escape the hall. From outside, one could see the entire northern side of the arena collapse to the ground. The crumbling building hit the ground, producing a dust storm. Because of the dark blanket on the arena, the scene looked eerie. Many alchemists lay on the open ground without moving a muscle. Their green robes were drenched in their own blood. Other than the green robes, the only commonality they had between them was the bite mark on their necks. Those who were lucky escaped the arena while Noah was fighting them. Still, almost 60% of the people died at the hands of the vampires. The smell of blood stench in the air was evident from this gruesome massacre. The casualty rate of the alchemists was much higher than the spectators. Only a handful of the alchemists who participated in the final round escaped the arena. The rest were on the ground, dead. Almost 90% of the most talented alchemists of Elon and Azair died in the battle. At that moment, among the bodies, 2 bodies moved. Shit! Michael cursed as he picked himself up from the ground. He pushed himself to the limit by using celestial energy. Otherwise, he would have been crushed by the building. He still couldn't believe the elder vampire brought down the hall with a single snap of his finger. Michael picked himself up as he growled and saw the arena in ruins. The VIP seating and the hall north side of the arena were gone. Arg! Michael heard a growl as he turned aside to see Noah. Just like him, Noah also pushed himself to escape the collapsing building. However, considering Noah wasn't a soul refining stage cultivator, he couldn't use celestial energy to power up his spells. That was why Noah had bruises and cuts, unlike Michael. Noah flicked his wrist, retrieving a healing potion. Noah drank the potion in one gulp and prepared himself for the battle. Then, Noah looked around to see hundreds of dead bodies. All those lives lost. His heart ached at the sight. These are blood-sucking vampires. So we have to kill them, you know that, right? Michael asked, looking at the elder vampire hovering towards them with the vampires following him behind. I only want one alive, Noah said. Sponsored content visit Readel. Me for extra chapters. No problem for me, obviously. Noah wanted one vampire alive so he could interrogate him for more information. If Michael was right, Noah would also try to find a cure for vampirism. With the help of the system, it was not a big deal for Michael. He had already started to find the cure and required a blood sample from a more powerful vampire other than Victor. His blood might do the trick, Michael said to himself staring at the elder vampire. At the moment, only Michael, Noah, and the vampires remained in the arena. All the others were either dead or escaped the arena with their life intact. You possess heaven's flame, the elder vampire said, landing on the ground. You massacred my freshlings, the elder vampire turned his gaze from Noah to Michael. I wonder what kind of vampires you two would become, the elder vampire's voice sounded colder, when I turn you both. As soon as these words escaped the elder vampire's mouth, the 30 vampires behind him dashed at Michael and Noah before they could even blink an eye. Lightning dash, void step. Michael dashed at the vampires leaving a golden trail, while Noah left blurry after images. Clang, clang. The sound of metals clashing emerged in the ground, but unlike one would expect, the sound produced by Michael and Noah's sword hitting the vampires' necks. Michael was surprised as his sword didn't cut through the vampire like before. Instead, he felt like he had hit a stone. Only then did he realize the red mist covering the vampire's neck. Die! The vampire violently swung his fist at Michael, but he quickly leaped back. On the other hand, Noah was also surprised by the protective mist around their necks. Blood beam! Before Michael could bat an eye, the vampire fired a red beam at him. Out of the blue, the translucent responsive shield popped up and absorbed the beam, protecting Michael. The vampire was surprised but kept firing beam after another without a break. Suddenly Michael's neck hair stood up as another vampire leaped at him simultaneously from behind, left and right. Noah's situation was no different than Michael's. In fact, Noah was in worse condition as more vampires targeted him because of Heaven's Flame. The responsive shield could protect him from attack spells but not physical attacks. Therefore, Michael immediately cast the ring of fire to burn the vampires flanking him. Motherfucker! Ah! The scorching hot flame appeared around Michael in a perfect circle, instantly burning the 4 vampires within a 3-meter radius. The flames continued to send waves of flames in all directions, preventing the other vampires from getting close to Michael, and burning the vampires inside the circle more and more. Granted, the vampires had inhuman regeneration. Still, injuries and burn wounds hurt them like hell. Luckily for the vampires, Michael still didn't use the dark flames. Otherwise, the ring of fire would have turned the vampires into piles of ashes. Arg! Suddenly a vampire roared as he smashed the stage Noah stood on during the competition. Bang! 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 A couple of vampires joined the vampire in breaking the platform. Meanwhile, the others kept Michael and Noah busy. They swarmed the 2 of them from all directions. They kept smashing the platform until the platform cracked open. Then, after cracking open the marble platform, the vampires ripped apart a huge 10-meter-long marble slab. Boom! Shit! Michael only saw a blue before he was sent flying by the marble pillar. In mid-air, he coughed up blood as the APD immediately sent a healing potion into his bloodstream to heal his body. The vampires swung the marble pillar again as fast as they could and swatted Noah like a bug. The next moment, Noah's body violently screeched through the ground, creating a clear trail. Chapter 5 10 Gods in Action. The vampires split the marble pole into 2. Some vampires grabbed one hand and ran to Noah while the others leaped into the air above Michael. Fuck! Michael saw the vampires bringing down the marble pillar to crush him like a bug. Lightning dash! Immediately Michael dashed out of the way. Boom! When the vampires brought down the pillar, the shock wave created a mini explosion and a dust storm around the area where Michael was a moment ago. Meanwhile, on the other side, the vampires treated the heavy marble pole like a wooden club and tried to smash Noah. Light blast! Noah raised his hand, seeing the pillar coming down on him. Boom! The blast of light beams shot out of Noah's hands obliterated the pillar into bits and pieces. Still, the beam of light wasn't powerful enough to stop the vampires from smashing him with the marble chunks. Cough! Noah coughed up blood when a huge chunk of marble landed on his chest. Michael was surprised to see Noah getting beaten up by the vampires. However, when he pondered for a moment, everything made sense to him. The vampires drew power from darkness, just like him. Only, he didn't cast Death Range to strengthen his powers since he didn't want anyone to suspect him of being the Dark Lord. Noah, on the other hand, drew power from light. Although Michael had no concrete evidence that Noah was the god of light, he suspected it. The acne before him confirmed his doubt. If Noah was to draw power from light, it made sense why he was so weak at the moment. Because there was no light coming through the dark blanket in the arena, the entire atmosphere had an eerie red and black color to it, resembling hell. Since there was a lack of light, the darkness suppressed Noah's powers. In addition, he also used most of his energy fighting the vampires and saving the spectators. While the marble block pinned Noah down on his chest, 3 vampires leaped at him, showing their fangs. Their eyes were blood red, longing to drink Noah's blood. Michael may not know Noah was his brother, but when he saw Noah was in danger, the bond of brothers buried deep within him woke up as Michael dashed at Noah. But, of course, Michael rationalized the feeling of saving Noah by thinking that he needs Noah's heaven's flame to kill the vampires without revealing his secrets. Before Noah could cast another spell, the marble chunk on his chest shattered into pieces, and a strong wave of wind blasted away the vampires leaping at him. Noah looked up and saw Ghost extending his hand. For some reason, Noah felt safe around him. Thus, Noah grabbed his hand and stood up. As soon as he grabbed his hand, Noah felt a sting in his palm. Then, a refreshing feeling surged from his core. Noah immediately felt better, and when he saw Ghost, he winked at him. "Time out!" Michael shouted at the vampires as they halted their steps. "Just give us a damn moment, okay? You guys are bullying us." The vampires were confused, and so was the elder vampire. "Now I'm regretting not running away." Michael's facial muscles twitched, showing his exhaustion to the vampires. "What is he doing?" Noah wondered. Since he had to heal his body and replenish the arch energy within his body, Noah remained still. "Don't bother stalling, Ghost," the elder vampire snickered. "No one is getting in or out without my permission." Michael took a step aside, but the vampires immediately snarled at him. So Michael quickly dropped his swords. "I'm not gonna fight anymore." Just as though the vampires received an order from the elder vampire, they stepped back. Is it too late to ask for permission to leave? I mean, you clearly allowed others to leave. Michael slowly walked away from Noah, keeping his hands in the air. I needed some cockroaches to tell exactly what happened here, the elder vampire calmly said. He was awfully calm and didn't seem worried about the Guardians or the Holy Church breaking into the arena with their full force. But you too. Michael saw the elder vampire lick his lips. Will be my finest creations. I will rub this on their faces. I get it, Michael pointed at Noah, he has a primordial flame. Why me? Other than making potions and pills, I have no use for you. The man you tried to kill was a better alchemist than me. Michael emphasized the words primordial flame and continued, and I can run around faster. Again Michael emphasized the words run and faster. Noah felt like Ghost was talking to him. He pieced together the words he was emphasizing and connected the dots. The vampires had total control over the arena. Hence, they couldn't care less about Michael. As far as they were concerned, he was mumbling in fear. They didn't see him slaughtering their friends after all. So they were oblivious to what he was capable of. Can we make some sort of deal and work together? Michael emphasized the words work together. I can help you transfer primordial flames to you. The elder vampire frowned as Michael looked at his sword near Noah's foot. If Michael was right, the healing potion would have healed Noah by now. In the corner of his mind, Michael wished he had injected his Nanite's potion into Noah's bloodstream. However, he couldn't risk it. No matter what Noah must not find, Ghost was the Dark Lord. Michael wouldn't do anything that would jeopardize his identity. After all, Noah wasn't alone. He had Andreas with him. Primordial flame chooses the host, not the other way around. Today you will be turned. Then you will obey every single command I have for you. Damn it, I love my freedom so much. Not to boast, but I rejected the Guardians because I don't want to work for them, Michael sighed. Soon they will all work for the great nation of Evernight. Everlight was the rise of the legendary Emperor's MC's nation. And you too will be our slaves, the elder vampire coldly snickered. Do you know something? Michael lowered his hand while his expression changed from being afraid and exhausted to cold and murderous. If one thing I hate the most, it's slavery. Now! Michael shouted as he dashed at Noah as fast as he could. Sponsored content visit Readel. Me for extra chapters. Before the vampires could react, Noah stomped the ground to raise Ghost's swords in the air. Noah waved his hand when the swords were at his eye level, sending a stream of heaven's flame onto the swords. Immediately, the bright blue flame coiled around the two black blades. At the same time, two vampires dashed at Noah, flanking him from both sides. They were fast, but Michael was quicker because he didn't hold back. Instead, he used all the celestial energy in his body, pushing his speed to maximum. Just when the vampires were just a meter away from Noah, Michael grabbed the two swords in the air. Whoosh! Whoosh! The elder vampire saw two heads flying towards him. He was shocked by Ghost's speed. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 100,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. The headless body staggered around, spraying blood before collapsing to the ground with a sickening thud. Compared to Dark Flames, Heaven's Flame was much weaker and way less potent. Hence, it didn't melt Michael's swords as Michael expected. Since his sword was on Heaven's fire, they cleaved the heads through the mist like a hot knife through butter. At that moment, the vampires raised their hands. Blood beam! Several beams of crimson-red light shot out from their hands towards Michael and Noah. Seeing the beams, Michael remained closer to Noah as the responsive shield absorbed all the beams, rendering them pretty much useless. Pulch! Suddenly Michael felt a hot splash of blood on his face. When he turned aside, Michael saw Noah's hand sticking through a vampire's head. The vampire sneaked up on them, but Noah killed him before he could reach Michael. Realizing Michael's defense spell protecting them both, the vampires changed their battle tactics. They all just dashed at them from all directions. Give me the sword. Michael handed his sword to Noah after he asked. The vampires closed the gap in a blink of an eye. Anyone in Noah and Michael's shoes would barely see their blurry figures. But Noah and Michael remained calm and worked together. When they reached closer, Noah and Michael stood closer with their backs against each other. Clang! 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 Michael and Noah swung their swords, rotating and deflecting the vampires' claws. The faster they moved, the blurrier their figures became to the vampires. From the aerial view, one could see the two of them vaguely forming a yin-yang symbol. For the first time they fought together. The darkness and light fought against a common enemy. Even powerful entities such as vampires couldn't touch both of them. "Cast your ring of fire," Noah shouted while fighting off the vampires. "Ring of fire!" Immediately a ring of fire appeared around them. Michael wondered what Noah was planning, and soon he got his answers when Noah raised his hand, shooting out a stream of heaven's flame onto Michael's crimson-red ring of fire. The moment the two fires clashed, they merged together, forming a bright golden flame. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 50,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 50,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 50,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a vampire. The reward is 50,000 experience points and 5,000 badass points. The vampires burned to ashes in a flash when the golden fire touched them. Surprisingly, Michael only received half of the experience points he would normally receive. It seemed like the system deducted points by half because half of the kill was Noah's. Light beam. Noah fired a beam of light strengthened by heaven's flame straight through a vampire's head while Michael sent a powerful gust of wind blasting the vampire, dashing towards him into the fire. The power radiation the elder vampire sensed as they were fighting startled him. He had never felt such power in his life. But, of course, he was 600 years old. He experienced many anomalies, but the radiation from them was something else. What are they? Chapter 5:11 Battle intensifies. The elder vampire was in a dazed status, sensing the energy radiated from them. A moment ago, when they fought alone, he didn't feel the energy. Still, the moment they joined forces, the energy radiation overwhelmed him. While he was in a daze, Michael lifted Noah into the air by his hand, and Noah used Michael as a pole to kick the vampires around them. Blood hole. Blood tornado. Overwhelmed by Michael and Noah, the vampires cast the blood hole and the blood tornado spell at the same time as several tornadoes and red holes appeared in the ground. Having experienced the spells, Michael put his hand around Noah's neck. Hold tight. Noah nodded as he also put his hand around Michael's neck. Lightning dash. Void step. Both of them cast their speed spell at the same time to boost their speed. The two spells merged into one, forming a trail of golden light that flickered in the air, creating an otherworldly whistling sound. The golden light crisscrossed around the arena, avoiding the tornadoes. But, even for the elder vampire, it was difficult to follow the trail. So it made sense when the vampires couldn't even defend themselves before losing their heads. The red hole sucked the alchemists' bodies to the ground while the tornado destroyed the bodies. When Noah was alone, he was weakened by the darkness. Noah's weakness was nulled by teaming up with Michael, the god of darkness who drew strength from the darkness. Because of their speed, the red holes could suck them in. Compared to the suction force, their speed was much greater. As a result, the elder vampire witnessed his underlings losing heads one by one. They said he would be weakened, the elder vampire snarled. Congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is the soul refining stage, level 5. When the system sounded in his head, Michael stopped running, and all the red holes and the tornadoes vanished into thin air. At that moment, only one vampire remained between them and the elder vampire. He is all yours. Michael let Noah capture the vampire alive. He walked by Noah's side towards the vampire. They both knew the battle was far from over as the elder vampire didn't even raise a finger yet. For now, Noah planned to incapacitate the vampire before fighting the elder vampire. After witnessing all of his friends get slaughtered by the duo, the vampire shivered. Then, fearfully, it walked backward until it tripped on a stone and fell down. Save me, the vampire begged the elder vampire. Michael never wanted Noah to capture the vampire alive. Any information Noah gathered from the vampire would give him an edge Michael did not want Noah to have. Hence, he didn't help Noah capture the vampire. However, he could have simply injected the vampire with a paralyzing poison he hit Victor with. Come here, the elder vampire softly spoke to the vampire. The vampire quickly picked himself up from the ground and dashed to the elder vampire's feet. And oh! Noah dashed at the elder vampire. But it was too late. First, the elder vampire engulfed the vampire in his red mist. Then, with the X-ray eyes, Michael saw the elder vampire's tongue drilling into the vampire's mouth as the vampire squirmed like a fish out of the water. In a couple of seconds, a mummified body hit the ground. Then finally, the red shroud around the elder vampire slowly cleared up to reveal his complete physical form. The elder vampire had a bloated carcass with several yellowish tumors leaking a green goo. His body was at least 4 feet wide and 6 feet tall. The inflated belly looked like the elder vampire swallowed a whole gym ball. Now Michael fully understood why the elder vampire chose to surround himself with a misty shroud. Just the disgusting belly button alone would make anyone puke to death. On top of everything, the elder vampire was naked. The last thing Michael needed was a sight of what was between his legs. Luckily for them, the vampire's inflated belly was big enough to cover his crotch. Not that vampires had reproductive organs. Still, Michael did not wish to see that. Several strands of mucky blonde hair on the vampire's bald egg-like head creepily waved left and right to the wind's rhythm. His dirty eyes with vertically slit red pupils stared at both menacingly. Looking at his unappealing body, Noah couldn't help frowning. He had never seen such a hideous creature in his life, and he had traveled to many realms and fought countless ugly creatures. When you want something done, you have to do it by yourself, the vampire snarled. Light blast! Noah raised his hand without warning, sending a light beam blast at the elder vampire. Noah was fast, but the elder vampire was faster. Hence, the vampire raised his hand as a translucent energy shield materialized before him and blocked the light beam. Heaven's flame. It's a pity I can't take it from you. The shield blocked the light beam strengthened with heaven's flame. Chantless spell casting, Michael mumbled. It seemed as if the elder vampire was either a fusion stage cultivator or a prodigy, or the elder vampires were able to cast spells without chanting. System, you know the drill. When the heat gets too much to handle, teleport me away, Michael said to the system in his mind. Noted. This was Michael's plan B. In case the elder vampire overwhelmed them, the system would buy a teleportation scroll and teleport him away from the arena. Else, he planned to battle and kill the elder vampire. His blood might be just the thing Michael needed to find a cure for vampirism. Moreover, he was curious to see how many badass points he would get after slaying the elder vampire. Void step. Unlike Michael, who stayed behind scheming in his head, Noah dashed at the elder vampire. Clang, clang, clang. Noah swung the sword covered with heaven's flame at the shield. Although the shield flickered, the shield did not break until a fist poked through the shield. Boom! Noah blocked the fist with his sword. However, the force behind the punch overwhelmed Noah as he was sent flinging in the air. The lack of light really suppressed Noah's power, and without Michael by his side to fight, Noah stood no chance against the elder vampire's punch. This didn't mean Michael could battle the vampire without breaking a sweat. In a blink of an eye, the elder vampire dashed at Michael after hitting Noah. Despite the elder vampire's bloated body, his speed matched Michael's speed when using the lightning dash. The elder vampire brought down his fist on Michael, who had his instincts kick in to block the punch. Michael put his arms before his face to block the punch, and when the fist collided with Michael's arm, a loud booming sound reverberated in the area. As the outcome of their collision, Michael's feet were pushed several inches into the ground. After that, the elder vampire repeatedly beat Michael like a drum. Sponsored content. Visit Readle. Me for extra chapters. Boom, boom, boom. The elder vampire kept bashing him with his fists. Michael didn't even have a single second to breathe. To Michael, it felt like he was being slammed by an elephant. His forearm went numb by blocking the vampire's punches. If it wasn't for the APD constantly injecting him with healing potions, he would have been either dead or broken to pieces. At that moment, APD was the only thing keeping him from becoming a victim of the elder vampire. Enough! All of a sudden, Michael's eyes flared up for a second before he grabbed the vampire's hands. He manipulated the darkness, drawing strength from it to thwart the elder vampire's punches. Arg! Michael shouted as he fought against the raw strength of the vampire. The ground Michael standing on was cracking as his feet kept going deeper and deeper. Ardith crying out loud. Michael punched the elder vampire in the belly using all his strength. Boom! The punch's force pushed back the vampire a few feet backward. One could see the ripples on the vampire's bloated belly, and a tinge of surprise in his eyes. Void step. After Michael punched the vampire, Noah leaped at him in a flash. Soon, Noah appeared above the vampire's head and brought Michael's sword down the vampire's neck. Ring of fire. Immediately Michael cast the ring of fire to entrap the vampire within the circle. But, in mid-air, Noah held the sword in one hand and pointed the other at the fire, sending a stream of heaven's flame to the crimson-red fire. Noah and Michael's coordination and speed stunned the vampire. Before he could even react, the crimson-red fire turned golden. These golden flames burned many of his underlings to ashes. Even though he was powerful, the elder vampire did not dare to underestimate heaven's flame. The elder vampire was a second late to react, resulting in Noah stabbing him in the shoulder. Bang! The vampire moved quickly to swat Noah away from his shoulder like a bug. Boom! Michael used the opportunity to dash at the vampire before punching him again in the stomach. Bang! With a single backhand slap, the vampire sent Michael flying just like Noah. After streaking through the ground for a few long painful seconds, Michael picked himself up from the ground as the APD sent a dose of healing potion into his bloodstream. Noah, who stood a few meters away from Michael with tattered white robes, chugged a healing potion down and threw the vial aside. "He is too strong," Noah exhaled. For a moment, the three stood without raising a finger. "And you lost the sword?" Michael looked at the sword stabbed into the vampire's shoulder. The sword almost looked like a needle due to the bloated size of the vampire. "Annoying bugs." The vampire bore his teeth to reveal the long razor-sharp fangs. The two fangs were long and menacing as Sabertooth's canines. As he took a step forward, a large mace materialized in his hand. The mace almost looked as though it was made of blood rather than metal. With each step he took, the ground trembled. "Don't worry, your bodies will heal." The vampire menacingly grinned at Michael and Noah. If anyone else were in Noah and Michael's shoes, they would have started to shiver. The amount of pressure they both felt could crush any body-strengthening stage cultivator into a bloody pulp. Despite the pressure, they remained calm. There was no use in panicking. Boom! The elder vampire pounded a body on its way to a pulpy mess without showing any shred of sympathy for his kind. The blood vaporized into the air and entered his body. After the blood entered his body, he licked his lips. Chapter 5:12 Battle concludes. The elder vampire caught them off guard by suddenly dashing at Michael. Immediately Michael raised his sword to block the mace. Boom! The moment the sword and the mace collided, Michael's sword broke into pieces and threw him backward a couple of meters. "Now you pissed me off." Seeing the broken sword in his hand, Michael growled. He loved those two black swords, and the elder vampire broke one like a twig with a single swing. Now Michael had to forge or buy a pair of swords from the system for a ridiculously high price. The price was why Michael hadn't purchased a sword from the system. There were better choices in the auction houses than the swords in the system. Unfortunately, the system locked the ores behind an upgrade wall. So without upgrading the system to a certain level, Michael wouldn't be able to buy them. Instead of wasting his badass points on a pair of swords that could be outclassed by swords forged in this world, Michael used the black sword given to him by the Cain elders. Seeing Michael standing with a broken sword, Noah turned his head to look at the white sword behind the elder vampire, several feet away from them. "Go get it." Michael nodded at Noah before dashing at the elder vampire. The elder vampire swung his mace, sending a crescent blood wave at Noah, but Noah raised his hand, firing a stream of heaven's flame to cut through the blood wave. On the other hand, Michael reached the elder vampire and leaped onto the vampire's belly. He climbed onto the vampire's stomach as quickly as possible before the vampire could react. Bang! Michael kicked the vampire's chin with enough force to numb his feet. "Arrgh!" The elder vampire roared, which sounded more like a roar of an annoyance than hurt. Michael tried to grab the sword sticking out of the vampire's shoulder, but before he could get his hands on it, the vampire tried to swat Michael with his big fist. Bang! Michael stomped the vampire's face, crushing its nose. Yet, the broken, crooked nose set itself in a matter of seconds. However, it pissed off the vampire as it began to grab Michael violently. Immediately Michael retrieved the tear gas vials from the system storage and broke the vials by crushing them on the vampire's head. "Fuck!" The vampire cursed as the tear gas made the vampire unable to move around by causing intense irritation to the eyes. Michael knew the tear gas could only be in effect for 10 seconds or so to a powerful being such as the elder vampire. Sometimes he was annoyed by alchemy. Almost every single potion and pill would lose its effect in front of a powerful cultivator. The celestial energy was an ultimate purifier than the arch energy. Even the most powerful poisons would be purified by celestial energy. This was why killing a cultivator above the soul refining stage was near impossible by means such as poisoning. It was also why the system charged a measly amount of 20,000 points. Granted, being an alchemist was a great way to get rich. Still, when it comes to battle capabilities, there weren't many potions and pills that could really give him an edge when battling beings with higher cultivation stages unless he could get his hands on some potent ingredients. Unfortunately, the damn system overpriced every ingredient to the point that brewing the portion would not be worth the price. Boom. The vampire had enough of Michael's annoying tactics. Hence, the vampire clobbered himself in the face with the mace. The shock wave threw Michael off balance. When he struggled to balance himself, the vampire punched him in the chest, instantly breaking several ribs. Fighting the pain, Michael cast the lightning dash to dash away from the vampire before the vampire grabbed him. Michael's arm was so numb that he didn't even feel the sting of APD. Even with the 90% pure healing potion, it would take him at least 5 to 6 minutes to heal his broken ribs. While Michael was coughing up blood, Noah leaped at the vampire with his white sword in his hand. Lightning blade! Michael saw a thick bolt of lightning shooting from Noah's sword to the vampire's head. The pure white lightning momentarily blinded the vampire and flashed across the arena. Noah's lightning would have reached the vampire's head if he, a bloated disgusting mountain of meat and fat, didn't jump in the air, overhead kicking Noah like a football. The agility and athleticism caught Noah off guard. And not only Noah but Michael too. For a moment, the bloated vampire looked like a professional football player. That overhead kick was simply too shocking. Before the elder vampire lands on the ground, a blood-red torpedo shot out of the vampire's butt and soared through Michael. Boom! It exploded when the torpedo clashed with Michael's responsive shield. Fortunately, the elder vampire wasn't stronger than a soul-refining stage cultivator. Because of that, the shield absorbed 80% of the force. But the remaining 20% forced Michael several steps backward and broke his ulna like a twig. Damn it! Michael gritted his teeth in pain. He looked down at his forearm to see a bloody broken bone sticking out through the sleeves. He couldn't even imagine what would happen to him if he didn't have the responsive shield. Shooting missiles from your butt. Real matured, you ugly fuck, Michael shouted at the vampire before pushing back the broken bone back into his forearm. It hurt like hell despite the APD sending a healing potion into his bloodstream. Noah had a look of surprise when he saw Ghost pushing back the broken bone. So many would have fainted in pain or screamed in agony. Yet, Noah saw no pain or misery on his face but intense killing intent in his eyes. After Michael set the ulna back in its place, the healing potion sped up a bit. I had enough of this, Michael mumbled to himself and looked up at the black cloth covering the arena's rooftop. Do you really think it's just a black cloth? The elder vampire snickered. Sponsored content visit Readel. Me for extra chapters. Unless I want to, it's going nowhere. I am the overlord in this scene. The elder vampire oozed with confidence. The vampire stomped the ground as a sign of his dominance. I am Ghost. Michael's lips curved upwards, surprising the vampire and Noah. The next moment, Noah and Michael dashed at the vampire from back and front. Noah was the one behind the vampire, while Michael cast the lightning dash spell to face him head-on from the front. System scan completed. The dark net is a web of complicated runes and arrays intervened together. The system requires 200,000 badass points to disable the dark net. He heard the system sounding in his head, and although the required badass points staggered him, to kill the elder vampire, he had to spend the badass points. Do it! Michael yelled at the system in his mind. But, unlike Noah, he never planned to fight the elder vampire head-on. Instead, he planned to level the field by weakening the elder vampire. Sunlight was deadly to any vampire. That was why Victor or the other vampires wore dark robes covering their skin. But the elder vampire was too confident in his dark cloth blocking the sunlight. Thus, he was as naked as a newborn baby. As though Noah had read Michael's mind, Noah changed his trajectory suddenly and dashed at Michael. When they both met a few meters away from the elder vampire, Michael leaped into the air as Noah grabbed Michael's feet and boosted him into the air using all his strength. While Michael was soaring through the air towards the black cloth, Noah threw his sword in the air, which was caught by Michael just a moment before he swung the white sword at the black cloth. Creech! The vampire was startled when he heard a tearing sound. He looked at the growing tear in the black cloth dumbstruck. Little by little, the sunlight crept through the gap, vacating the red ambience the vampires created. It's impossible! The vampire couldn't take his eyes off the tearing black cloth. One of the most powerful weapons the vampires had was destroyed in a matter of seconds. He spent the best years of his life perfecting the black cloth, only to fail. Meanwhile, Noah felt the light coming through the gap, restoring his power. Noah gained power while Michael lost his power boost as the darkness was being replaced by light. Still, it was worth the trade-off because the light weakened the elder vampire more than it did to him. Even without the darkness, Michael was a soul-refining stage cultivator and still strong. But the same could not be said of the vampire, as his power took a nosedive. Boom! Suddenly, Noah shot into the air from the ground like a rocket, cutting through the air. In mid-air, Noah grabbed Michael's hand, which was holding his white sword. They pointed the sword toward the vampire, diving down. The two of them looked like a meteor soaring through the air, creating a trailblaze. At that moment, Noah and Michael shared the same sword and aim, killing the elder vampire. The elder vampire's battle instincts kicked in as he raised the mace in the air to deflect the sword. Additionally, the translucent red shield bubbled around the vampire, who had no longer wished to stay in the arena because of the sunlight. Boom! However, when the duo and the shield collided, the vampire's blood shield shattered into hundreds of tiny shards. The shock wave burned everything around them in a 10-meter radius. Pulch! Noah and Michael did not stop as they entered through the vampire's chest, forming a vast hole and appearing out in the back, completely drenched in blood. The elder vampire screamed in agony as his skin began to smoke. In a couple of seconds, the sunlight completely burned his skin. Then, coupled with the huge hole in his chest, the vampire staggered aimlessly. Finally, after a long tiresome battle, they slew the elder vampire. However, Michael frowned as he didn't hear any notification from the system or receive any experience points. For some reason, Michael had a bad feeling in his guts, and when he turned his head, he saw the same concern on Noah's face. Chapter 513 Noah and Michael dead? Noah and Michael stared at the fallen vampire without batting an eye. Then, all of a sudden, the vampire began twitching his limbs. Soon, his whole bloated carcass trembled violently as yellowish goo oozed out of the tumors in his body. The strong putrid smell of ammonia and sulfur overwhelmed Michael's senses. It was quite nauseating as Michael had a strong urge to throw up. His face was turning green when the vampire's body began to bloat while his body released a green mist. "He's gonna explode!" Suddenly Noah shouted. In a snap of time, Noah cast the void step, grabbed Michael by his hand, and dashed into the air. Michael had zero clue how Noah found the vampire was about to explode. But just as he said, the vampire's body bloated rapidly, releasing more and more green mist until it exploded. The explosion wasn't a small one. It was as though a mini atomic bomb had gone off. One could see the mushroom cloud from 100 miles away. Every single building within the 1-mile radius from the arena turned into ruin, and the Alchemy Guild, one of the oldest buildings on the Azer continent, crumbled down. Almost for an hour, no one could get closer to the arena, which was now nothing but a crater of ashes. Then, as Mother Nature had given the city her blessing, the dark rain clouds gathered above the arena and began to shower the city with heavy rain. The heavy rain quenched the heat radiation and settled the dust clouds around the arena. The rain also put the houses on fire and prevented the fire from spreading. At that moment, the sky was full of people and warships. The Guardians, the Holy Church, the King's Men, and every single noble family in Adrizel arrived at the arena to fight the vampires. It was a real pity that many were caught in the explosion and burnt to a crisp. Still, each of them received backup and brought their own runemasters and mages to control the fire and isolate the area. Since the dust storm settled down, revealing the ground below, several people descended to investigate the area. Alicia and Norvin were among them. "Noah!" As soon as Alicia's feet touched the ground, she shouted out loud. "Careful. What the hell happened here? Can you see anything?" The guardians behind her murmured. The heavy smoke and the ash from the explosion prevented them from seeing everything clearly. There was nothing but smoke and ashes as far as they could see. While they were aimlessly strolling in the smoke, a group of 12 men robed in pure white robes appeared above the ruins. The long white beard, the staff in their hands, and the pointy hats on their heads gave them an exotic mage vibe. Right at that moment, they formed a circle around the ruins. Surprisingly, the heavy rain couldn't drench them as it drenched everyone else. These mages remained as dry as a desert possible because of the translucent force field around them. Air purification. Each of them chanted the word as they raised their staffs in the sky. From each staff, a bright light shot to the sky and met at a center point, forming a radiant orb of light. A few seconds passed when the orb of light transformed into a spinning chakra with a mile radius. Countless indistinguishable signs and letters formed the chakra. The chakra's brilliance lit the entire city of Oxshore and provided the people the comfort they needed. As the chakra rotated, sucking the heavy smoke and ashes, the chakra swirled in the sky, purifying the air until Alicia and the others could vividly see what was in front of them, which was nothing but barren lands. Alicia couldn't recognize the place at all. She felt as though she stepped into a desert only with ash instead of sand. As far as her eyes could see, she found nothing, not even a brick. "Look!" Alicia immediately turned to the man who shouted to see a skeleton, and when the man touched it, the skeleton crumbled into white dust. Meanwhile, more and more people landed on the ground, including Olivia and Aishan. They joined in the search for Noah and Ghost. To be honest, only Olivia came to search for Ghost while the Guardians focused on finding Noah. But, deep down, Alicia wanted Ghost to be one of those skeletons. Since Olivia had no sway with the Guardians and they had already refused to search for Ghost, she began to run around the barren lands searching for her teacher. But, of course, if this happened in Elon, the entire river town and the Sunrise sect would have been on the scene. But unfortunately, Michael had no connections in the Azer continent. If anyone could survive this, it's Noah. Seeing Alicia's eyes watering up, Norvin gently patted her on the head. While they were scouring through the ashes, a group of 12 men dressed in silver armor with the crest of the Guardian Guild on their chest landed on the ground. The one who led the group was a tall, domineering elf with striking blonde hair. Tanulia Valrin, aka the Alpha Guardian of Hunter Guardians. "I want every inch of this place searched. Coordinate with the Holy Church Guards. No stones unturned. Got it?" "Yes. Alpha Guardian." The Guardians behind Tanulia raised their voices, and each of them dashed in a direction to search the premises. "We will find Noah," Tanulia said when he came to Alicia and Norvin, Grandmaster Aishan. Tanulia then turned her gaze towards Aishan, who was still looking pale and terrified. "How is Lord Hendrix?" "He is now stable. The healers asked him to take a rest. I have assigned my best men to protect him. His safety is our top priority right now. Ghost." Their conversation was abruptly cut short when suddenly a panicked voice reverberated in the area. They all looked in the direction of the voice to see Olivia frantically digging through the ashes. They all rushed at Olivia and saw a hand sticking out of the ash. "Quick!" Tanulia shouted at the men surrounding her. But no one needed an order as they had already begun to dig the ashes. Alicia and Norvin joined in the digging. The more they dug, the more they uncovered Ghost's body. While digging, Norvin felt another hand beside Ghost. His speed doubled, thinking it might be Noah. Just as he guessed, when Norvin and Alicia dug out the ashes, they uncovered Noah's body. Sponsored content. Visit Readle.me for extra chapters. Together, they all finally managed to dig out Ghost and Noah. Unfortunately, both of them were in pretty bad shape. Their clothes were burned and torn up. Several parts of their body, such as hands, neck and legs, were covered in burn wounds, and they could even see Noah's femur sticking out of his leg through the pants. "Are they alive?" Aishan asked while the Guardians were carrying them away from the dig site. "He has a pulse." Olivia grabbed Michael's hand and sensed a weak pulse. "Bring me the healers." Tanulia shouted as several Guardians flew out of the ruins to bring the healers to her. Meanwhile, the Guardians placed 2 wooden beds on the ground instead of taking them out of the crater. The rain slowly washed off the ashes on their faces. Alicia and Olivia's tears also hit their faces along with the raindrops. "What are you doing?" Looking at Olivia taking out a healing potion from her space ring, Tanulia questioned her, but instead of responding to Tanulia, Olivia gently poured the healing potion on Michael's neck, which was severely burned by the explosion. The potion healed up the wound but not the marks. Afterward, Olivia took out another potion and gently poured it into Michael's mouth. "Wake up, Ghost." Olivia could barely speak those words through her lumped throat. Most of the sparkling potion leaked out of his mouth. This was why the others waited for the healers. Instead of dumbly pouring the potion down an unconscious man's throat, the healers would turn the healing potion into an easily absorbed vapor and send it through the patient's skin pores. However, Olivia had neither patience nor trust in the Guardians after she read how they try to drive people by hiding the vampire's existence from the world. As a result, not only Olivia but many people shared her thoughts and lost faith in the Guardians. After what happened in Adrizel spread across the world, the majority of the people would blame the Guardians. However, the Holy Church was already on a secret mission to dethrone the Guardians. Today, they received an ultimate weapon to use against the Guardians. Tanulia or the others didn't give a damn about Ghost. Hence, they didn't stop Olivia from pouring vial after vial into his mouth. Instead, except for Asian, they all focused solely on Noah. Suddenly before the healers could arrive, Ghost's finger twitched. Ghost! The sight of Ghost's pinky finger twitching may be the happiest memory she had ever experienced. Michael gasped for the air, opening his mouth. Immediately the healing potion in his mouth went down his throat. As soon as the healing potion reached his throat, the wounds on his body began to close up. The redness gradually returned to his body as they all stared at Ghost's breathing, getting heavier and heavier. Looking at Ghost responding to the healing potion, Alicia wasted no time. She took out a bunch of healing potions Noah brewed and smeared them on Noah. Wait for the healers. Tanulia didn't want Alicia to choke Noah with healing potions. She had witnessed many unconscious soldiers die because their fellow soldiers tried to pour down healing potions down their throats. There was a reason why the battlefield had healers and tents to treat unconscious soldiers. With a flick of her wrist, Tanulia paralyzed Alicia before she killed Noah. On the other hand, Olivia kept shaking Ghost by his shoulder. His eyes abruptly opened, shocking everyone. You whack! As soon as he opened his eyes, he turned his head, throwing up blood. Ghost! Olivia's motherly instincts kicked in as she held his head sideways to make his vomiting as comfortable as possible. She kept patting and brushing his back while Michael continued to throw up blood. A few minutes later, Michael finally stopped coughing up blood. He took out a healing potion and chugged in one gulp. Teacher, Olivia said, but Michael raised his finger, wordlessly telling her to wait. He then stood up from the bed and took out another glimmering jade vial. Under their stunned gazes, he emptied the potion into his mouth. The miraculous potion healed his burned skin, visible to the naked eye. Arg, Michael growled as he rotated his head, producing cracking noise. I am never judging a competition again. Chapter 514 Noah warns Alicia. Michael spit a bit more blood and took out a leather pouch from his system storage. Teacher, Olivia tried to say something, but Michael raised his finger as he took a long sip of water. He kept drinking until Tanulia cleared her throat. What happened here? Instead of answering Tanulia, Michael looked at Noah, who lay on the bed unconscious. Give this to him if you want to save him. Michael took out a sparkling healing potion Olivia used on him and threw it at Tanulia. His pulses are fading. You should act quickly. Where the fuck are the healers? Alicia shouted. He is right, Norvin nodded. We can't waste a single second soon. The golden Babaru snatched away the healing potion from Tanulia and poured the potion into Noah's mouth before anyone could stop him. As a golden Babaru, not only could he sense life signs but also sense whether something was poisonous or not. Hence, Norvin didn't hesitate to give Noah the healing potion because he sensed no poisonous energy. His finger twitched as soon as Michael's potion touched Noah's mouth. Michael sighed inside. He never thought he would be indebted to Noah. Yet, when the vampire exploded, Noah saved him by casting a protective shield around them. Besides, the system surprisingly urged Michael to save Noah. As for why, the system gave him no answer. So if it weren't for the system, Michael would have left Noah to die. Noah! Alicia shouted, tears rolling down her rosy cheeks. How long was I out? Michael asked Olivia, ignoring Alicia. Despite the risk he took, Michael received only 300,000 experience potions and 10,000 badass points for killing the elder vampire. Michael wasn't happy with what he received since he almost died. After the elder vampire exploded, Noah cast a protective light shield around them. But unfortunately, the shield could only cover one person, and Noah let the shield save Michael instead of himself. Michael would have chosen himself and not Noah if the roles were turned. 6 hours, Olivia shocked Michael. Damn it, Michael yelled at himself. He was completely unconscious. This was the closest Michael came to death. When he and Noah went through the elder vampire's body, he took a flesh and blood sample. At least something was worth the risk. Using the samples, Michael was confident of brewing a potion that might cure vampirism. Tell us what happened, Tanulia coldly exclaimed. Vampires happened. Didn't those who escaped tell you? Michael stretched his arms and legs while responding to Tanulia. He looked down on him to see his clothes ripped and torn. The black robes now looked dirty brown. Under their gazes, Michael poured down the water in the pouch onto his head, washing the ashes off of his hair. Then he willed the system to equip a new set of robes. The explosion. Tell us about that, Tanulia asked, not minding he's changing his robes like he was going on a vacation. You know the one scary one who tried to kill Lord Hendrix? Michael asked, looking at Aishan as the old man nodded. He exploded. For a few moments, no one uttered a word until Norvin managed to find words. Why? Because we killed him. Who do you think cut open the blanket covering the arena? A glint of shock and surprise emerged in Tanulia's eyes. Michael expected her to be shocked. Obviously, the Guardians would have tried to destroy the dark cloth and failed. Michael paid a whopping 200,000 badass points to disable the runes and arrays into the dark net. If the system charged that much, there was no way the Guardians could have cut through the dark net in a short amount of time. Thus, her shock didn't surprise Michael. Cough. Subsequently, Noah coughed up blood just as Michael did. Michael was glad to see everyone was focusing on Noah instead of him. I assume your competition got the boot, Olivia cried and laughed at the same time as Michael wrapped his hand around her shoulder. I am sure your team would have won the competition, Michael rubbed her shoulder playfully. I don't give a damn about the competition. You scared me to death, she purred like a little girl. Next time, I will run away with you. Happy. Michael laughed. Michael turned his back on Tanulia and her group to leave the area when he heard Tanulia's voice once again. You cannot leave. Olivia saw the smile on Michael's face vanish into thin air. He turned back and looked Tanulia in the eyes. Why? 1. We still haven't figured out what happened here. 2nd, we have a witness claiming you killed Lord Gabriel. Several dark lines formed on his face as he creased his brows. Standing beside Michael, Olivia shared the same look. Killed Gabriel? Ghost tried to save him. I saw that in Grandmaster Aishan too, Olivia defended Michael. Michael turned his gaze to Aishan, who immediately avoided direct eye contact. I am not sure what I saw. Everything happened so fast. At this exact moment, Michael had a strong urge to kill Aishan. However, it wouldn't take a genius to figure out that the witness was none other than Alicia, who held a grudge against Michael for exposing her brother and destroying his life. At that moment, Michael regretted not killing Peter in the forest when they first met. When Michael gazed at Alicia, Norvin felt a chill looking at Michael's eyes. They were the eyes of a killer, and every fiber in Norvin's body told him that Ghost was not just a killer but a predator. He sensed an overwhelming power within Ghost that could rival the power of Noah himself. Since Norvin didn't wholly comprehend his newly found powers, he couldn't make any connection between Noah and Ghost. As far as he was concerned, the power radiation he felt might be because of Ghost's higher cultivation stage. Are you arresting me? Michael tilted his head. If everything went according to his plan, the Alpha Guardian wouldn't be alive to arrest him in a few days. Don't act so innocent. I saw everything. You let him go. You killed him, Alicia roared. Sponsored content visit Readel. Me for extra chapters. Alicia couldn't stay silent for long. Her hatred and anger blinded her mind and made her ignore Noah for a few moments. I didn't, Michael simply shrugged. Of course, Michael killed Gabriel. He intentionally shot lightning bolts at Gabriel so he would lose his grip and fly into the red hole. Unfortunately, he didn't anticipate Alicia's quick reflex to grab him and Aishan's interference. Gabriel would have been alive if Michael didn't grab him before he could be pushed away from the suction force. But instead, Aishan, the old bastard, interfered and tried to save Gabriel. Unfortunately for Gabriel, Michael had already fixed his mind about killing Gabriel. Gabriel's hands weren't slipping away. Instead, Michael was the one who let him go. Oh, is this about your vigilante brother? What was his name? Peter? Michael pouted to mock her. As soon as Alicia heard Ghost uttering her brother's name, she lost it. The golden spear still burning with heaven's flame materialized in her arms. Just as she was about to leap at him, a hand grabbed her spear and stopped her. They all looked down to see Noah opening his eyes. I will tell you everything that happened here, Noah rose from the bed. If anything, we should thank him for helping me take down the vampire, Noah calmly said to Tanulia. To be honest, Noah didn't like the way Tanulia treated Ghost. As far as Noah was concerned, if it weren't for Ghost, the elder vampire would have killed him and his friends. But, once again, Ghost helped him. We can let them go, despite talking to an Alpha Guardian. Noah seemed domineering. His voice contained an authority that made Tanulia's tone weaker. Noah then turned to look at Ghost, who was slightly surprised by Noah's words. I thank you on behalf of the Guardians for your help, Ghost. I'm in your debt. Well, it's your lucky day as you have a chance to pay the debt. Michael yet again completely ignored Alicia and smiled. You've been engaged to her. Michael looked at Olivia and then turned back his gaze to Noah, but she's in love with someone else. So I'd appreciate it if you annul the marriage agreement. Consider it done, Noah nodded. Olivia felt like a mountain of pressure being lifted off her shoulder. She let out a deep sigh. Thank you, Master Noah. Olivia bowed to show her gratitude. She didn't expect Noah to be so generous. So many young masters considered annulling a marriage a shame. But Noah was so benevolent. No. I should be the one asking your forgiveness. If I knew you were in love with someone and didn't like the marriage, I wouldn't have agreed to it. No. How could you have known? Olivia shook her head. Now that everyone got what they want, I should take my leave. Ghost. When Michael was about to turn back and leave, Noah called him. Michael saw Noah extending his arm, and with a nod, Michael firmly shook Noah's hands. After everything was said and done, Michael left the place with Olivia. They both shot towards the sky and disappeared into the dark clouds, leaving Noah's group behind. What was that? The moment Michael disappeared into the clouds, Tanulia coldly asked Noah, Forgive me for taking up the authority, Alpha Guardian. But we need to make allies instead of enemies. This vampire threat is not a joke. A single vampire decimated one of the highly protected places in an hour. Noah looked around and sighed. If we want to defeat them, we need powerful allies. Considering Tanulia knew about Noah's identity and how important he was to the guild, she remained calm, although she didn't like how Noah interjected and disrespected her rank. Then Noah turned his gaze towards Alicia, who was trembling in anger. And Alicia, the sooner you accept what your brother did was wrong, the better. If it weren't for Ghost, someone else would have exposed him. Norvin's jaw dropped a few inches as he was utterly shocked by how coldly Noah talked to his sweetheart. It was the first time Norvin had seen Noah treat Alicia coldly. The burning spear in her hands disappeared, along with the anger in her eyes. Instead, her eyes got filled with tears. This feud of yours with Ghost ends now. We would investigate impartially and serve justice if he had anything to do with Lord Gabriel's death. Do not let your hatred blind your mind. Chapter 5:15 Future Plans of Michael, my lord. When Michael entered his room in the dark forest, Azazel welcomed him with a bow. However, as soon as he entered the room, the red orbs began to radiate a dim crimson-red light. Dude, you look like crap. What the hell happened? Iag, who was eating potato chips made by Raylene, asked Michael. He may have changed his robes and washed his face using the rainwater, but he still looked extremely exhausted and pale. The moment he reached the bedside, he collapsed to the bed just a few inches away from Vidora. I fought an elder vampire, Michael sighed. After hearing his words, Iag dropped the chip in her mouth back into the silver bowl. Did I tell you I fought with Noah? Michael said, looking at the dark ceiling. Then he turned his head to look at Azazel before Vidora could ask what happened in Adrizel from the beginning. Connect me to Eladir. Something is drilling my mind, and I think he may have an answer. As you wish, my lord. Azazel waved his ghostly hand as a 32-inch mirror materialized in the air a few meters away from the bed. Michael rose and willed the system to establish a connection with Eladir through the earpiece. Several seconds later, the mirror flickered as Eladir appeared in the mirror. Currently, Michael could see numerous drawings on the wall behind him and a messy bed behind him. My lord, Eladir slightly bent his waist to show his respect. Is there a god of light, Eladir? Michael's sudden question put a frown on Eladir's face. Not as far as I know, my lord. But when you, the god of darkness, exist, it wouldn't be illogical to say there is a god of light too. May I inquire why you suddenly ask me this, my lord? Because I think Noah is not only the successor of Andreas. I think he is also the god of light. Michael's voice was grave. In fact, Vidora or Azazel had never heard this much seriousness in his voice before. Why do you think that, my lord? Michael let out a long sigh and began narrating what happened in the competition from the beginning. None of them uttered a word after Michael finished his story. Eladir finally broke the gloomy silence. Light spells, drawing power from the light, darkness weakening him, Andreas choosing him to be the successor and trains to defeat the Dark Lord. Eladir rubbed his chin as his voice trailed off. Everything makes sense, my lord. You might be right, said Eladir after pondering the matter for a long few moments. That must have been the reason why the system told me to wait until it reaches version 8. He is a god. Just like me, Michael said to himself. If it's true, we have to be more cautious than ever before. Michael heard Cain as everyone except Michael locked their gazes with Cain. Also, if you could connect the dots, Noah might be too. So we have to stay as far as possible from him. Hearing them, Ayag couldn't help rolling her eyes. Why can't we just go and kill him while he's still weak? And no, Eladir immediately raised his voice. We must not underestimate Andreas and the Sky Hall. You have only one rune master, me. But they have countless, and if I'm right, Andreas would have made sure no harm comes to Noah. Michael agreed with Eladir with a nod. When Michael injected Noah with a healing potion using the APD, he felt a gentle force resisting the potion for a moment. To Michael, it felt as though Noah's body scanned the potion and filtered it before letting the potion into his bloodstream. In case Michael tried to inject Noah with blood tonic, he had a feeling Noah's body would have rejected it by destroying the nanites. As Michael was deep in thoughts, Eladir once again broke the silence that haunted the room. The best course of action would be to stay away from Noah and raise your army in the shadows for the great war yet to come, my lord. Where should we go? Sarba felt a lump forming in his throat in the sadness of leaving the place he has grown to love. Ghost will go to Ar. Michael cracked his neck as his mind quickly formed a plan. Let me guess. You are planning to kill more people in Elon as Lucifer. Michael nodded but chose not to explain in detail. He couldn't just say he has to get more experience points by killing people so he could get stronger. Why not Jaisal? We are absolutely safe there, asked Sarba as Michael sighed. We can't be sure until we know everything about the Guardians and the Sky Hall. Then what's the plan? Aya asked Michael as he turned back to look at them. Simple. Ghost will move to Ar and establish himself there. Lucifer will eradicate Noah's potential allies and weaken him in Elon and Azair. The Dark Lord will build an army in the southern continent. I can feel the excitement in my veins. Ayag grinned. Do you have a contact in Ar, my lord? Azazel asked Michael and drew Michael's gaze towards him. Eve Voldegard. As soon as Michael uttered the name, a glint of surprise emerged in Eladir's face. Voldegard? Is she a relative of Lane Voldegard? Michael nodded. Yes. She didn't talk about Professor Lane, but I think there is some history between Lane and Voldegards. I will gather more information and try to exploit whatever there is to strengthen ourselves. Michael looked at everyone to see if anyone had something to say. However, they all nodded in agreement with his plan. When are you and Gaia coming here? We should all move to Ar together. Speaking of Gaia, where is that snake? Ayag smiled. Although Ayag didn't show, she missed having Gaia around so much. Without her, the dark mansion felt gloomier than ever. It was rare to see a Lydie smile, but thinking about Gaia, his lips curved upward, revealing an alluring smile. Sponsored content. Visit Readel. Me for extra chapters. She is having the best time of her life in the combat class. Yesterday she brought hundreds of snakes and set them free in the classroom. There are still many students in the infirmary healing. These snakes were poisonous? Asked Aya with a devilish grin. Very nice. Damn it. I wish we were there to see them screaming and crying. Did they scream and cry? Ayag tilted her head as Eladir nodded, brightening her face even more. Tell her not to overdo it. She needs to teach them something to maintain her cover. Eladir rubbed his eyes, fighting the urge to sleep. I already did. By the way, we will be there by next week. Then we can finally finish the mortars. Michael could see the exhaustion and sleepiness in his eyes. Hence, Michael didn't keep him any longer. Take some shut-eye, Eladir. You can't function best if your brain and body are desperate for rest. I will, my lord. After that, the mirror flickered again before turning completely dark. Then with a flick of his wrist, Michael took out Lucifer's suit of armor and put it on an armor stand. The armor looked as menacing as ever with its dark metallic platings and crimson-red linings. When I fought the Elder Vampire, I realized one of my biggest weaknesses. Michael ran his fingers through the armor. What is that? Asked Ayag. Armor, Michael simply said. This armor might look fancy, but it can't protect me from spell attacks. I need stronger armor. For both Lucifer and Ghost, who needs a suit of armor more than Lucifer, while fighting as the Dark Lord, Michael could unleash his full power without worrying about exposing his identity. Hence, Michael was relatively safe fighting as Lucifer than as Ghost. Granted, there were cool clothes in the system store, but they were not armors. To forge stronger armor, he needed stronger materials. Unfortunately, the system locked the ores and armor materials under an upgrade wall. In other words, until he upgrades the system to version 8, he wouldn't be able to buy a suit of armor or any materials from the store to forge a stronger unique armor. However, it never stopped Michael from getting what he wanted. The Aqua auction might have what I need to forge armor. Eve said she knows some blacksmiths who are capable of forging any sort of armor. Also, we should recruit a loyal blacksmith. Our might be a good place to start looking for suitable candidates, Kane reminded Michael. To become a blacksmith himself, Michael would have to pay the system a whopping 700,000 badass points, and it would make him just a one-star blacksmith. However, if he found one with a blacksmith specialty, he could turn him or her into a 5-star blacksmith for 1.2 million badass points. Compared to alchemy, smithing was in a different realm. But, coupled with his inventor trait, Michael knew he would be able to create some nasty weapons that could change the tide of the war. Of course, Michael planned to become one himself in the future. But for now, recruiting someone else seemed like the cost-effective and plausible way. He wished Jack was here because Jack had all the requirements to become his personal blacksmith. His death was really a loss for Michael. Loyalty should be the key here, Saba said in his soft voice as though he read Michael's mind. I am pretty sure we can find a desperate dwarf who would be willing to become the Dark Lord's subordinate in our... Michael devilishly grinned. Excitement rushed through his veins, thinking he was finally going to our, the most powerful continent of all. My lord, suddenly Azazel called him as Michael turned around. Today is the day we asked Miss Peyton to meet you in Maven. Oh, the assassination of the Alpha Guardian. I almost forgot about that. But you haven't killed her yet? I asked Michael. I will. Let's go meet Peyton, shall we? Michael willed the system to equip his armor as the suit of armor vanished from the stand and appeared on Michael except for the last piece. Mask. It appeared in Michael's hands as he slowly put it on his face. Where are we going? Asked Sarba as they flapped their tiny wings to take off from the bed to Michael's shoulder. To the crypt. Michael activated the runic teleportation, and the next moment, he just vanished into thin air, leaving Azazel behind. Chapter 5:16 Tenulia's brutal death under the sky of perfect midnight velvet, under stars so brilliant they drew the eyes heaven-bound. The music softly played by crickets and the ever-expanding ocean in front of Tenulia made every second waiting for the vampire she was supposed to meet a beautiful yet heart-beating experience. She gazed at those bright friends of the moon and their pattern that seemed so fixed and yet ever-changing while the waves gently brushed over her feet. Her silver robes, adorned with golden engravings, fluttered in the wind, dancing to the rhythm of the sea along with her striking golden hair. It had been an hour since Tenulia arrived at the marked location on the parchment she received from a mysterious vampire. As far as her eyes could see, there was nothing but the ocean and an empty beach void of any life signs except a boulder 20 or so meters away from Tenulia. Regardless of waiting for a vampire in the middle of the night with no one around her, Tenulia had no fear in her heart at all. She was trained to remain calm and collected despite the situation by her mentors ever since she was born. The Alpha Guardian was not just a position. It was a state of mind. She was patiently waiting for the vampire and looking at the half-moon in the sky until she noticed a figure flying through the puffy white clouds accompanying the moon. The figure slowly descended onto the shot several meters away from her. The dark figure just arrived at the scene was tall, neither too skinny nor bulky, and wore ragged brown robes and a cloak to cover his face. Tenulia had seen beggars in much better condition than the man in front of her. However, she didn't show any scorn since she was not here to comment on his fashion sense but to do something that would save many lives. Tenulia Valran. Tenulia heard the man speak in an otherworldly, distorted voice that almost sounded mechanical. And you're the one who sent the potion and this? She slowly moved her hands to her waist and took out a parchment in her belt wrapped around her perfect slender waist. Since Tenulia was in civilian robes instead of her usual silver armor, one could clearly see her flawless hourglass structure. Furthermore, although the robes covered her arms, they failed to hide her muscle definition, which added an extra layer of charm to her beauty. Your people slaughtered hundreds of innocents today in a drizzle, her eyes glimmered with rage and fury. That was a payback for what you humans had done, Tenulia Valran. Secrecy is the lifeblood of Nightwalkers. When it's threatened, it's only natural we retaliate. The words sounded colder than the words spoken by Tenulia. Name your price for curing Tiriana. Tenulia didn't beat around the bush. Instead, she directly asked for the cure so she could save Tiriana, who was dying little by little painfully. We have heard you're spinning the blame on today's message on rogue cultivators. By message, you meant the massacre, right? You can take it however you want, Tenulia Valran. We wanted to send you a message and we did. Now we demand you turn us into a myth again. Otherwise, you will receive more and more messages every single week until... The vampire paused for a moment to let everything he just said sink into her skull. All humans are eradicated from the face of this world. Tenulia clenched her fist as the veins in her face bulged up. One could literally hear her grinding her teeth if they stood beside her. You want us to cover up your existence. A little bit late for that after your message, don't you think? That's your problem. And you're getting the wrong idea here, Tanulia Valrin. We are not here to negotiate. I'm here to tell you what you have to do to save your species, the vampire sternly said, leaving no chance for her to talk back. After hearing from Noah what happened in the AquaClan arena and what the vampires did to the people there, she did not dare to underestimate the vampires. Just a group of vampires massacred hundreds of people and prevented anyone from saving them. In a matter of a few hours, the vampires eradicated 80% of the alchemists in Elon and Azair. As a result, an alchemist's value on both continents would skyrocket in the future as the vampires created a massive void in the alchemy world. What about Tiriana? She can't survive until we do the impossible. Your drinking this potion is the price for saving her life. The vampire opened his palms to reveal a brownish potion glimmering from within. Is that poison? No, the vampire shook his head. Since he had a cloak and mask covering his face, Tanulia couldn't see his expressions. But judging by the tone of his voice, she could tell he didn't give a damn about her life at all. If we wanted to kill you, we would have done it by now. We Nightwalkers don't use underhanded tactics like your species. The potion floated towards Tanulia, revealing that the vampires could use arch-energy within the void line. Tanulia blankly stared at the potion hovering in the air in front of her before grabbing it. She looked at the potion in her hand without any idea what it would do if she took it. Do I have to take your word on that? How do I believe it's not the same poison you gave to Tiriana? You don't. If you value your friend's life, this is the price. With her eyes watering up, Tanulia opened the vial. She expected the air around her to smell different, but contrary, nothing changed as she still smelled the fresh salty air as before. The vampire stared at her, lifting the potion towards her mouth and pouring it slowly into her mouth. As soon as she emptied the vial, blood seeped through her nostrils. She slowly lost the strength in her legs as everything around her turned blurry. She tried to say something, but a mouthful of blood sprayed out of her mouth instead of words. Then, her skin turned paler than a white sheet in a few blinks of an eye. Finally, Tanulia collapsed on the sandy shore. Her body frantically twitched as blood seeped out from every pore in her skin, drenching her silvery robes with her blood. The sand beneath her slowly turned red around her. Her gaze fused with shock and rage, still locked onto the vampire until the light of life finally left her eyes. Peyton, the vampire called out when Tanulia's body stopped twitching. Sponsored content. Visit Readle.me for extra chapters. For a few moments, there was nothing but the sound of ocean breeze and waves that haunted the arena. Then, several seconds later, a figure walked out of the boulder's shadow out of the blue. Currently dressed in black robes from head to toe, Peyton strolled toward Tanulia's body. Is she dead? Peyton removed the cloak covering her head to reveal her face. She turned her blood-red eyes towards the vampire and saw him nodding his head. Her face twitched, showing the burning anger in her heart. I have to make sure, Peyton coldly snickered before retrieving a gray dagger hanging on her waist. Bitch! Peyton kicked Tanulia in the gut furiously and continued to do so to vent her anger. Seeing a decorated guardian such as Tanulia's corpse getting kicked mercilessly by another guardian was sickening. Peyton kicked and stomped Tanulia's body to the point she started to hear bones cracking in Tanulia's body. Then she dropped to her knees. You betrayed me! Peyton raised her dagger in the air as far as she could and brought it down onto Tanulia's chest pulch. The blood sprayed out from Tanulia's chest as Peyton kept stabbing her repeatedly. Her rosy face was painted red with the blood sprayed onto her face. Still, Peyton continued to skewer Tanulia until she couldn't raise her hand anymore. After she was done stabbing Tanulia's dead body, Peyton turned around to look at the vampire. Under her murderous gaze, he removed his brown robes, revealing the dark metallic armor beneath. Dark Lord, Peyton mumbled, looking at his terrifying stature. I fulfilled my end of the bargain. Tanulia Valrin is no more, he said, stepping towards her. The vampires will be blamed for her death. Peyton sensed his voice changing from mechanical distorted to cold demonic voice. Peyton stared at his crimson-red eyes for a few moments in silence. A year ago, she began her journey to hunt down Lucifer so she could climb up the ladders in the guild. A year later, after spilling so much blood and sweat, she stood in front of the Dark Lord with the blood of Tanulia Valrin in her hands. What do we do with the body? Peyton looked at Tanulia's body. Then, she took a few steps away from the body while the Dark Lord stepped closer to Tanulia. Peyton saw the Dark Lord looking at Tanulia from top to bottom. What a pity. She would have made a fine subordinate. Peyton could swear that she almost sensed a bit of compassion in his voice. Letting out a sigh, the Dark Lord turned around. At that moment, Peyton was only a hand-reaching distance from him. Peyton took a deep breath, looking directly into his crimson-red eyes. Afterward, she threw the dagger away and dropped to her knees. For a few seconds, she looked at the sand, and then, she finally looked up at him. Her heart was pounding against her chest as everything around her seemed to have stopped. Suddenly, Tanulia's body behind the Dark Lord moved out of nowhere. Within a blink of an eye, Tanulia's hand grabbed the Dark Lord's legs. The Dark Lord shuddered, but before he could react, a golden sword engraved with hundreds of glowing runes materialized in Peyton's hand. Pulch! She stabbed the Dark Lord with lightning speed and twisted the sword. At the same time, a golden rope appeared around his feet. Teleport now, bitch! Peyton grinned as she sent the sword deeper into his guts. Chapter 517 Capturing the Dark Lord. As soon as Peyton stabbed the Dark Lord in the guts, and Tanulia, who pretended to be dead, cuffed him with a chain of Valhalla, a gigantic warship aka the Floating Fortress, appeared out of the blue in the sky. The ship cast a giant shadow on the beach, but soon, a powerful beam of light shot out from the ship, putting the Dark Lord in the center of the spotlight. The warship itself looked thrice the size of a man of war and resembled the shape too. Except the warship floated in the air instead of on the sea. The hull was built with strong yet lightweight metal and fitted with 30 cannons on a row, and there were 5 rows of cannons on one side. The glistening blue light of the half-moon reflected on the ship's silvery hull, making the ship look like a giant gem in the sky. In addition to the massive 4 masts fitted with golden sails, the ship was equipped with giant propulsors in the back to fly the ship and easily maneuver it in the sky. A statue resembling Tanulia was the figurehead, as a wolf head was engraved onto the hull and the sails. The warship functioned as Tanulia's headquarters in the southern continent. Aside from its domineering look, the ship had many powerful weapons and functionalities. For example, the ship was equipped with camouflaging runes, which was why the ship remained undetected above their heads. Since there was no arch-energy in the atmosphere on the southern continent, specialized runes and devices were designed to draw power from the moonlight and heat produced by burning a ton of coal. Get him up! Peyton shouted at the sky as the ship's belly opened up, releasing a floor panel attached to ropes. When the wooden panel hit the ground, Peyton grabbed the Dark Lord by his neck and moved him towards the wooden board. While walking, Peyton twisted the sword more to inflict maximum pain on the Dark Lord. But, considering the sword would release a potent paralyzing poison into the bloodstream of its victim, she wasn't surprised to see Dark Lord moving without struggling. Peyton and Tanulia were glad to see the sword and the chain of Valhalla working on the Dark Lord. Although they were forged by the best blacksmiths and enhanced by 6-star rune masters of Skyhall, the two had doubts. The last time they managed to catch the Dark Lord, he knocked them out and teleported away. Reel us in! Tanulia shouted as the wooden panel slowly moved upwards. A couple of minutes later, they finally reached the inside. The interior of the ship was brightly lit with golden chandeliers. Tremendous braziers encompassing several columns lit up every part of the ship and covered the interior in warm silver and dancing shadows. The large mirrors on the embowed ceiling danced in the flickering light, while stone effigies and wolves looked down upon the granite floor of this majestic ship. Alpha Guardian. Guardian Captain. A group of highly trained elites of the Hunter Guardians was there to escort them to the interrogation room specially built to contain the Dark Lord. The 12 men were clad in silver armor forged with the same metal as the ship's hull. However, even the elites glinted with fear in their eyes when they saw the Dark Lord in person. Wasting no time, they escorted the trio through a hallway guarded by more armed soldiers until they reached an 8-foot door made of copper. From where they started their journey to the door decorated by banners and lit with golden orbs that illuminated the paintings of elven men and women below them. Creak. The 3 guards leading the escort pushed open the copper door to reveal an empty room surrounded by white walls. There was only an oak table, 2 chairs on one side, and 1 metal chair on the opposite side of the table. Michael was stunned by Peyton's betrayal. But more than betrayal, it seemed like a carefully elaborated plan. While watching the interrogation room, and the glass on either side of the room reminded him of the interrogation rooms of Earth's law enforcement. The sword was still stabbed in the guts, and Peyton made a habit of twisting the sword every 10 seconds. Sit your ass down. Peyton punched the Dark Lord in the face before pushing him down on the metal chair. As soon as he was forced to sit on the chair, The elite guardians entered the room with more golden chains and tied the Dark Lord to the chair as tight as they could. His hands were tied to the back of the chair while his legs were tied to the chair's legs. Additionally, they put a jade collar around his neck, and the moment the collar touched him, it glistened brightly. Leave. Tanulia ordered the elites as they quickly left the room, leaving Tanulia and Peyton in the room with the Dark Lord. At last, Peyton let go of the sword's hilt and went to sit beside Tanulia on the chair facing the Dark Lord. But the sword was still glowing and sticking out of his guts though. Blood bags and retractable dagger. Tanulia retrieved several pouches drenched in blood out from her cleavage while Peyton stabbed herself with the retractable trick dagger. The rooms are powered with hundreds of runes that even we haven't fully comprehended. So don't bother teleporting or using any spells, Tanulia snickered. The last time we met, I saw you bleed. And you know what we Hunter Guardians say about that, if it bleeds, we can kill it. The elites who were witnessing the interrogation through the window couldn't feel proud of what they had achieved. So it was all an elaborate plan to catch me, the Dark Lord asked Tanulia and Peyton. For a moment, Tanulia and Peyton looked at each other. She then patted Peyton on the shoulder. She is the one who came up with the plan. Never in her entire life had Peyton gone through such a burden as she did to catch the Dark Lord. But at that moment, looking at the Dark Lord on the prisoner's chair, she felt the pain was worth it. Tanulia turned her gaze from the Dark Lord to the windows, which were one-way mirrors. They seemed to be a mirror when seen from one side, but like a window when seen from the opposite side. The Alpha Guardians used the windows disguised as a mirror for surveillance. Bring me the crate. A few seconds after Tanulia ordered the elite's Hull was standing on the mirror's other side, an elite guard entered the room, carrying a wooden crate. Thud. The guard quickly put the crate on the table and left the room as fast as he could. It was evident to everyone that despite being the elites, they still trembled at the sight of the Dark Lord. Sponsored content. Visit Readel. Me for extra chapters. Tanulia put her hand into it and grabbed something from the crate. When she opened her palm, still tainted with fake blood, Michael saw his spiders dormant on her palm without moving. We know you were watching us. It took us some time. You bugged us, but we did and turned it against you. After showing him the spiders, Tunalish closed her fist, crushing the spiders to dust. Tiriana, how is she? One would expect Tanulia to lose her calm or act furiously. However, she remained rather calm despite his question and what was happening to Tiriana. A necessary sacrifice. When Michael thought the Guardians couldn't stoop any lower, Tanulia surprised him. Tiriana was her best friend. Yet she just waved it off, saying a necessary sacrifice like Tiriana's life was worth nothing. You will pay for what you did to her. I will personally make sure you suffer more than she ever did, Tanulia coldly exclaimed as the Dark Lord turned his gaze at Peyton. You are really a great actor, the Dark Lord mused. Those who heard him from outside sensed no fear in his tone, which made them terrified of him even more. It was not an act, Peyton said, gritting her teeth. In case you're wondering, we knew about the Nightwalkers long before you sent Victor with Peyton and tipped off the royal news. I have to give it to you. Putting the Guardians against the Holy Church and turning the people against us at the same time was a great move, Tanulia snickered once again as she continued. But you forgot one thing. Tanulia leaned forward. When we hang you in front of Elon and reveal the real Desert Eagle operation, we will be hailed as heroes by the people. The future generations will sing songs about us and the sacrifices we made to eradicate you. So you let all those people die just to catch me. Peyton saw the Dark Lord tilting his head. To be honest, his every move creeped her out. But what she went through to get him made her stronger than ever before. Bang! Peyton suddenly stood up from her chair and punched him in the face once again. That's on you. She raised her voice. If you hadn't exposed the vampires, those would have been alive. Bang! Tanulia let Peyton punch him again and didn't bother to stop her. As far as Tanulia was concerned, Peyton deserved to torture him because of what she went through to get him. However, a few punches to the face were nowhere closer to what he truly deserved. Victor was outman inside the Nightwalkers. We were getting so much information about them and how they operate. But, unfortunately, because of you, we lost a valuable asset who could have tipped us about the attack in Adrizel, Peyton snarled at the Dark Lord. Except for Peyton, Tanulia, and Tiriana, none of them had any idea about Victor's true origin. He was a Guardian spy, and now Michael had killed him. Meanwhile, the elites outside saw Zanali strolling toward them. When she arrived at the mirrors, her eyes went wide in shock. Her entire body felt shivers looking at the dark figure sitting opposite Peyton and Tanulia. Is that? Her voice trailed away in utter shock. Yes, Guardian Captain. That is the Dark Lord. Chapter 518 Unmasking the Dark Lord. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, the Dark Lord burst into creepy laughter. His maniac laughter echoed through the room and sent shivers down the Guardian's spines. Your bullshit doesn't work on me, elf. I can see it in your eyes. You know about the attack long before I exposed the vampires. The only difference is because I exposed them, the vampires left some people alive so they could spread the message. Otherwise, it would have been a complete massacre with no survivors to tell any tales. Zanali was startled by his words. There was no way the Alpha Guardian knew about the attack and did nothing to prevent the killings. So many people, including Nagas in their human forms, were killed in the arena by the vampires. Tanulia creased her brows as he continued. You were planning to catch the elder vampire. But you didn't expect the dark net to be so problematic to break. Now that your incompetence backfired and caused so many lives, you're trying to pin it on me. Pin it on Lucifer or the Dark Lord as usual. Peyton heard the Dark Lord snicker. He leaned back on the chair and played beats on the table casually. We will catch the vampires. Just like we caught you. Tanulia clenched her fist only to see the Dark Lord snicker again. At what cost? You two are responsible for more deaths than me, and you people call me the Dark Lord. He turned his head to look at the mirror. The elite guardians and Zanali felt as though he was looking at them. I wonder what your future Supreme Guardian has to say about your plan. For the first time, a shock emerged on Tanulia's face. She stared at the Dark Lord without batting an eye. Noah Winston. I know all about him, Tanulia Valrin. Bang! As soon as he spoke these words, Tanulia kicked her chair backward and lunged at him over the table. She grabbed his shoulder and punched him without pulling her punch. Ha 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 ha. But the Dark Lord kept laughing as though he heard a joke. His laugh became creepier by the second, and many Guardians wanted it to stop. Alpha Guardian, the latest Audis are on and website. After seeing Tanulia punching him for the 50th time, Peyton softly called her to stop Tanulia. Although they suspect the Dark Lord was not a human and possessed inhuman strength and power, Peyton still didn't want to take his life before they could get as much information as possible from him, particularly about where he came from. The demon realm or hell realm was something which they knew frighteningly little. The last page's grimoire about the Dark Age and the Dark Lord mentioned something about a demon king of hell realm, and the higher-ups of the Guardian Guild suspected the Dark Lord might have some information about the demon king. Unfortunately, the only information they possessed about the demon king was a name. Hunter. Dictator with a badass system MC's name is also Hunter. What a coincidence. The higher-ups were none other than elders in the Sky Hall, but even the Alpha Guardians had no idea that the Sky Hall from the shadows controlled them. He doesn't know, and it will stay that way, Tanulia said before throwing one last punch at him. Her fist felt numb after punching him repeatedly. After we're done with you, we will see how your body is built. Starting from cutting open your throat, Tanulia threatened him, but he still kept laughing. You're a maniac. Not a god, like some sickos claiming you are, Peyton growled. Seeing you hang to death will make everything I went through worth it. Again, I wonder what your future Supreme Guardian has to say about your plan. Particularly the part where you endangered his little sister's life. Seeing Tanulia and Peyton remain calm, Michael slowly connected the dots and was truly surprised by them. They knew the vampires were going to kidnap her and force her to retrieve that key, Michael said to himself. If I am right, they are planning to kill the vampires after she retrieves the key. Then they will take the key from her. You should worry about yourself, Tanulia snarled at the Dark Lord. Set a course to Draddle. Elders will meet us there. Tanulia turned her head and locked her gaze with Zanali. Zanali nodded before leaving the interrogation room towards the ship captain. Because Zanali was a guardian captain, a couple of elites followed her behind. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room, Peyton and Tanulia each took a few parchments from the crate on the table and opened them. What am I thinking? Suddenly Tanulia smacked her forehead. Remove his mask. I want to see who is behind that mask, Tanulia ordered Peyton as the elite standing outside the room took a step forward. At that moment, every pair of eyes were locked on the Dark Lord's face. The latest Audis are on under website. Peyton stood up from her chair with a nod, strolled to the Dark Lord, and came behind him. First thing, she removed the cloak covering his head, revealing raven black hair. It seemed like Peyton was doing everything in slow motion to the elite guardians. His smooth raven black hair was long enough to reach his neck. After removing the cloak, everyone could see the black skull mask on his face clearly. Michael had difficulty controlling the urge to kill Peyton and Tanulia then and there. However, he was unable to send his sword through their heads personally. As Michael was watching Tanulia and Peyton, the latter grabbed his skull mask. The Guardians felt their heartbeat rapidly increasing, including Peyton. "Time to see how you look behind the mask, Dark Lord." Peyton snickered as she slowly pulled up the mask to reveal the Dark Lord's face. They all felt a chill running through their spines as soon as his mask came off. His face was decayed with several cracks in his face. Half of his cheek was missing and they could see his yellowish decayed teeth. The two pale white eyes stared at Tanulia with a creepy smile on his face. Tanulia twitched her nose as the strong pungent smell of rotten skin entered her nostrils. It was pretty horrendous to say the least. A Netheril. Tanulia could recognize an undead or a Netheril as they were commonly known in the cultivation continents when she saw one. Ha 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 ha. The undead burst into laughter and squirmed, shaking the chair he was tied to. This time when Tanulia heard his mad laughter, she had a bad feeling. H! The undead abruptly cut his laughter short and opened his mouth as wide as he could. When Tanulia looked into his mouth, she noticed something glowing inside his mouth. Before she could guess what that was, the undead spits the glowing rock onto the table. The elites immediately leaped away and curled into a ball, thinking the rock was going to explode. For some reason, the first thought when they saw the rock was that it might be a bomb. Tanulia stared at the jade rock on the table while a bright light inside the rock pulsated in regular intervals like a heartbeat. None of them had an idea about the rock until a bright light shot out of the rock to the wall behind the undead. The bright light slowly turned into a figure resembling the Dark Lord, but the Dark Lord before they unmasked him. "Dark Lord," the undead uttered the word as Peyton felt her entire body go numb. "Tieskasese. Peyton, Peyton, Peyton," the Dark Lord projected on the wall amused. The elite slowly managed to grasp the fact that the undead wasn't the real Dark Lord. But Tanulia was smarter than the rest. Hence, she realized the truth. The Dark Lord had played them. Visit. For the best-known experience, where is Tiriana? The Dark Lord asked as Tanulia quickly scanned everything around the Dark Lord. But no matter how hard she looked, she couldn't see anything but darkness around him. A few elites outside quickly made their way to Tiriana's room without waiting for Tanulia's orders. Instead, they were trained by Tanulia and worked under long enough to sense her thoughts. Here she is. In the dim red light, Tanulia saw the Dark Lord pulling something from his side. "Tiriana," Tanulia muttered, looking at Tiriana in the Dark Lord's hands. He grabbed Tiriana by the neck as she squirmed to escape his grasp but to no avail. "A necessary sacrifice." The Dark Lord calmly said in his demonic voice. Then he turned his head to look at Tiriana. Boom. The elites gasped in shock as Tiriana exploded into a bloody mist in the blink of an eye. Peyton stumbled back, seeing Tiriana's sudden yet horrifying death. On the other hand, Tanulia clenched her fist as her nails protruded the skin, making her literally bleed. After Tiriana exploded into blood-red mist, they saw nothing but red until the Dark Lord swiped off the blood. The Guardians who went to look for Tiriana returned to the area and pushed open the copper door. "Tiriana is not in her room, Alpha Guardian." The two armored guards had no idea that Tiriana exploded to death just a few moments ago. Boom. Tanulia raised her hand as a powerful gust of wind blasted away the two guards. "I thought you were fine with her dying, Tanulia Valrin," the Dark Lord said, tilting his head. He sounded amused by the anger in Tanulia's eyes. "Not a good feeling, is it? Realizing your whole plan is just a colossal failure, ha ha ha," he laughed, shocking everyone. "Your elders have been wetting their pants for thousands of years because of me. A simple thought of me gave them nightmares. Did you really think that two bitches could catch me?" His voice became colder and murderous. He then took a step closer as they saw his face closer on the projected screen. Slowly his crimson-red eyes became dark as Tanulia saw his eyes flaming up. Under their gazes, he raised his hand and kept his middle finger and thumb together. "Visit. For a better user experience, Peyton, when you thought you were playing me, you forgot something really important." Peyton's mind went black as she walked backward in fear. "I am the Dark Lord," he snapped his finger as the entire white room turned red with Peyton's blood. The Guardians gasped, realizing that Peyton exploded into a bloody red mist just like Tiriana with a snap of his fingers. Chapter 519 Destroying the Guardian Headquarters. As soon as the Dark Lord painted the walls with Peyton, the elites immediately rushed into the room to protect Tanulia. All of them were still boggled by Peyton's death. They had no idea how he killed Peyton without even laying a finger on her. He snapped his finger, and she just exploded in the blink of an eye. The imposter Dark Lord, the undead, was laughing like a maniac looking at the Guardian's panic. I won't kill you now, Tanulia Valrin. First, I will take away everything from you. Then, I will kill your precious elites. Only when you wish for death, I grant you your wish. Although the elites surrounding her were trained to be fearless warriors, they all feared for their lives deep down. Besides, the armor the Under was wearing kept releasing fear toxin in the air. Thus, everyone who breathed in the air felt fear clutching their hearts. Michael planned everything to the last detail. Boom! Tanulia felt hot blood splashing on her yet again as an elite guardian exploded. The empty silver armor he wore hit the ground with a sickening thud. We have to go, Alpha Guardian. Ha 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 ha. The undead laughed as the elites tried to take Tanulia away from the room. However, she did not even budge an inch from the room. Once again, Michael raised his hand, making the Guardians' hearts pound against their chests. Boom! Michael snapped, and just like before, a Guardian exploded from within. At that moment, the entire white room turned red, and blood oozed out of the walls and ceiling. Not only the walls but also Tanulia herself were drenched in blood. Her rosy face was covered by the blood of Peyton and 2 elite Guardians. For the first time in her life, her mind went blank. She was unable to think of the next step. As they were in a daze, hoping he wouldn't snap his finger one more time, Zanali entered the room. As soon as she entered the room, her face went pale. Her body shuddered, feeling her heart suddenly skipped a beat. Visit. For a better user experience, looking at all the blood and horror on the Guardians' faces and no Peyton in the room made her think of the worst. She stepped into the room as blood oozed down from the ceiling, reaching her crimson-red robes. Only then did she notice the Dark Lord's face on the wall. Despite all the blood, she could still make out his face. Where is Peyton? That was the first question Zanali asked. You're stepping on her. Zanali felt a chill hearing the Dark Lord's words. However, she noticed the one sitting on the chair didn't open his mouth. Since Zanali left the room way before the real Dark Lord's appearance and Peyton's death, she was pretty confused. Peyton is all around you. Zanali Hearthill. Princess of Nagaland. Zanali's body went rigid as she stared at the wall blankly. The last time Zanali met the Dark Lord and the Silent Reaper, he revealed her race. Now somehow, he had learned her real identity. Except for Peyton and Tanulia, no one knew about her race or identity as the Nagaland princess, not even Noah. What happened? Where is Peyton? Zanali stuttered. Gradually she felt a lump forming in her throat which made taking a difficult task. When the Guardians exploded, at least their armor survived the explosion. But, unfortunately, the same couldn't be said of Peyton. Not even a shred of Peyton's clothes survived the blast except her glasses. Zanali saw the glasses lying on the bloody floor and bent her knees to pick them up. Her hands shivered uncontrollably as her mind refused to accept Peyton was dead. Take a long look at what's around you, Guardians. This is what's waiting for you if you stand in my way. At that time, even Zanali couldn't be courageous due to the fear toxin in the air. After hearing his words, Zanali turned around, holding Peyton's glasses tightly. All the sweet memories she had with Peyton flashed across her eyes. We have to leave the ship, Alpha Guardian. Zanali's eyes flickered as Michael saw her pupils shrinking in size. At that moment, her eyes resembled the eyes of a Naga rather than a human. The ship is rigged to blow. We must go now. Tanulia took her gaze away from the Dark Lord. The captain is dead and so do several Guardians. Her rage and anger in her heart fought back the fear toxin in her bloodstream. Zanali momentarily pushed all her grief and anger to the back of her mind, and informed Alpha Guardian of what she saw. Zanali recalled the bodies she saw on her way to the captain's cabin. All of the Guardians guarded the hallways, and the captain's cabin was killed. Someone slit their throats and the captain literally had no head when she reached his cabin, where Zanali saw several explosives placed all around the room. Though unfamiliar with the explosives that looked like bricks pulsated red light, she sensed the heat building up within the bricks. Visit. For a better user experience, the last time we met, you destroyed the Silent Reaper. So now it's payback time, bitch. Michael snickered as he snapped his finger. The Guardians shuddered, but unlike they expected, none of them blew into a puppy red mist. Instead, the room the Dark Lord was standing in lit up. He was standing in a room with several world maps hanging from the walls and an oak table just a meter behind him. On the other side of the oak table sat a headless corpse that Zanali had seen a few minutes ago. He is in the captain's cabin. Tanulia immediately recognized the room. Alpha Guardian. The remaining 3 guardians tried to stop Tanulia, but they were pushed away by her. Then on her way out, she grabbed the glowing sword sticking out of the undead's guts. Ha 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 ha. Pulch. Tanulia swung the sword and cut his head clean off of his shoulder. Then, she strolled out of the room and didn't seem like anyone could stop her. Her eyes were bloodshot with anger. Boom! Suddenly, they heard a loud explosion as the ship trembled violently. Soon, the ship tilted sideways. Boom! The explosion went off again. This time, the Guardians and Zenali were thrown off balance. The explosion sound continually rang in their heads and soon, the howling sound indicated the hull breach. Immediately Zenali grabbed the jade stone lying on the floor before stumbling out of the room while holding the walls for support. Get out of here! Zenali shouted at the elites following her behind. The lights flickered for a moment before ultimately going out. Then, the place turned dark as the emergency lights lit the hallway in a dim crimson red. I will go get the Alpha Guardian. Zenali had to shout even though the Guardian stood close to her due to the howling wind sound. But visit. For the best known experience, ITS and order. Zenali pushed the armored guards away before turning around to chase down Tanulia. The 2 remaining guards had no choice but to find a way to escape the ship. Unfortunately, the ship kept tilting left and right, making moving forward a problematic task. However, holding onto the walls, the 2 of them walked along towards the cargo bay, where they received the fake Dark Lord. That opening was the quickest and closest way to escape the ship. Don't fall back, Stas! The armored elite guardian leading the way shouted at the one behind him. The guardian behind was staggering until the elite guardian shouted at him. Then, the guardian's walking became steadier despite the ship's frantic shaking. He walked steadily and lifted the silver helmet off, revealing the face beneath. It wasn't Stas as the elite guardian claimed. It was Michael. He was disguised as the guard and remained in the room the whole time. Stars! When the narrow hallway opened up to reveal the cargo bay, the elite guard shouted in relief. But, unfortunately, when he turned around, his relief became a shock. Boom! Michael snapped his finger before the guard could react. Just like earlier, the guard exploded into a bloody mist the moment he snapped his finger. While Tanulia and Zenali were on their way to the captain's cabin, Michael punched the ship, forming a large hole in the hull. Since they were so high in the sky and rapidly descending, the wind and pressure were strong enough to push any normal human being like a piece of paper. However, Michael wasn't a normal human being. Thus, he stood in front of the hole, looking at the tiny buildings on the ground. The ship descended straight towards Elon's Guardian headquarters in Kingdom Draddle. Michael made sure the captain set a course to the Draddle before he took the captain's head. Michael conjured the dark flames and the moment the dark flames touched the hull, the ship caught on fire. The ship was built to withstand fire but not against a powerful primordial flame such as the dark flames. Hence, the dark flames spread through the ship like wildfire, burning everything in its path. At that moment, everyone on the ground shouted at seeing the giant flaming meteor descending towards the Guardian castle. Immediately the mages and the Guardians flew out of the castle to stop the ship from colliding with the castle. It wouldn't take a genius to figure out that the result would be catastrophic if the ship crashed onto the castle. The Alpha Guardians in the castle immediately evacuated the people inside while the otters were casting spells to stop the ship. But at that moment, they all knew stopping the ship wasn't an option. Thus, they all braced for impact and tried to slow down the ship. Far away from the castle, Michael was floating above the clouds in his Lucifer form. The imminent destruction of Tanulia's warship and the headquarters put a wide grin on his face behind the mask. Visit. For a better user experience, it was a real pity that he couldn't hijack the ship because of all the runes and protective arrays. Unfortunately, the system level was too low to hack them, but the system could disable the defensive arrays for a short time. This short amount of time was enough for Michael to set it on fire and send it toward the castle. Payback, bitch! Michael turned around while the ship crashed onto the castle in the distance, creating a giant explosion. Several hours ago, Michael was floating above the clouds and looking at Tanulia on the sandy beach. She looked the size of a bullet ant from where he was. Michael wore his suit of armor and was shrouded in dark clouds. In simple words, he was in his complete Lucifer form. My lord, Azazel appeared beside Michael above the clouds. He is ready. Michael turned his head to see an undead wearing the same suit of armor as him. It cost Michael 6,000 Badass points to buy the suit of armor and make the alpha undead wear it. Additionally, Michael attached a voice modulator he invented to the undead's throat. The feeds are online, Azazel pointed at the alpha undead's eyes. Go to the dark forest and monitor everything. What will you do about the warship approaching, my lord? Michael looked over his shoulder and activated his thermal vision. The moment the vision went blurry blue, he noticed a bright orange blob of a heat signature approaching their location. Cloaking technology. Cool, Michael smiled, feeling his excitement bubbling inside. If the Alpha Guardian ship could have the cloaking ability, Michael could equip his warships and vehicles with the same technology but only better. Hijack or destroy, Michael calmly said. Now go. Have good hunting, my lord. Azazel bowed deeply before his ghostly figure vanished into thin air, leaving Michael and the Alpha undead behind. After Azazel left, it was time to implement his plan. With a flick of his wrist, he manipulated the wind around the undead. Thanks to his 10% wind manipulation, he was able to levitate the undead slowly to the beach from the sky. My lord, as Michael was flying the undead to the beach, he heard Azazel's voice in his head. I have established a connection with his voice modulator. I can now speak on your behalf. Good. I'll be listening. Keep them think he's the Dark Lord. Yes, my lord. Visit. For the best known experience, Azazel went silent as Michael finally landed the undead on the beach. Then, Michael flew higher into the air while controlling the undead telepathically. After merging his soul pieces together, his multitasking ability soared through the roof. Controlling the undead and flying had become as easy as breathing to him. Lightning dash. Michael flew at the invisible warship, leaving a dark trail in the sky. His speed had reached the point that when he flew away, he left after images of himself in the sky that lasted for a couple of seconds. In a few breaths of time, Michael arrived above the warship. He activated the thermal vision to see several guardians guarding the upper deck. They all wore metal plate armor from head to toe. However, when Michael disabled the thermal vision, the guards disappeared from his sight. So they also have the ability to use cloak. I need to get my hands on one of those armors. He already planned to disguise himself as a guard, but looking at the armor's ability to turn invisible, he decided to take it for himself. At that moment, there were 4 guardians patrolling the upper deck. Since the ship was Tanulia's headquarters, only the best of the best resided on the ship. Eladir, looking at the invisible ship floating through the clouds, Michael established a connection with Eladir. Can you the warship? Michael broadcasted what he saw to Eladir's mirror through the interlinked spiders and mirrors. I am not familiar with this vision. Can you place the rune I put in the space ring onto the ship's hull? It made sense that thermal vision was new to Eladir. Therefore, Michael nodded and waited for the soldier patrolling the ship's quarterdeck to turn around. Then the moment the soldier turned around, Michael dived down until he reached the ship's back. But he didn't touch the ship. You cannot make contact. Put this blue rune on your hands. It will temporarily prevent the ship from activating its defense arrays. The ring in Michael's middle finger let out a dim glow, indicating that Eladir, who had the interlinked space ring, added something into the space ring. Michael sent a sliver of his arch energy to access the ring and retrieved a golden parchment. When he opened the parchment while still floating behind the ship, he noticed a blue rune that resembled an eye glowing on the parchment. Touch the rune. As soon as Michael touched the rune turned into glowing blue dust and settled on his palm, forming the rune on his dark gloves. With the glowing rune in his hand, Michael touched the hull. Immediately Michael had a cold chill all over his body. Now place this rune on the ship. Once again, Michael retrieved another parchment from his space ring. This time, there was a rune in the shape of a fire symbol burning in the parchment. Like before, when he touched the rune, it turned into glowing crimson-red dust, floated to his right hand, and formed the rune on his palm. Creak. The latest episodes are on Undertale website. Michael heard a muffled creaking sound coming from the ship when he placed the rune on the ship's hull. They did an acceptable job, I think. But my runes are better. The Eye of Shalia will give you 5 minutes of time, which is more than enough for you to deal with the guards. Wear one of their armors and you're good to go, Eladir instructed him. Although Eladir heard that Michael was a hitman on Earth, he had no idea how skilled Michael was. Way ahead of you, Michael already planned to wear one of their armor. Now with the glowing blue rune, which was apparently called the Eye of Shalia, Michael climbed the ship carefully. Even when he was wearing heavy armor, Michael was extremely nimble. He climbed the distance of 20 meters in a minute. Then when he reached the deck, he looked up to see the guard leaning on the edge, watching the night sky. Michael was just a few inches beneath the guard, and if the guard looked down, he might see him. But before the guard could do so, Michael performed a ledge assassination by pulling the guard down by his neck and snapping his neck in a blink of an eye. Thanks to the system, he only had to pay 100 baddest points, and the armor would appear around him. Otherwise, he had to remove the armor from the soldier and wear it piece by piece, which would take time, and in that time, other guards might notice their colleague missing. Michael dropped the naked soldier down and climbed up the ledge as one of the guardians. After he had equipped the armor, he felt a vague connection with the armor. He closed his eyes for a moment as his silver armor flickered a few times before turning invisible. But, of course, it wasn't a perfect cloak. One could see the distortion in the air due to light refraction. He was confident enough to perfect the cloak with the help of Eladir, the system, and his inventor skills. The only thing Michael lacked was a blacksmith skilled enough to forge worthy armor. Michael killed one of the 4 guardians, leaving 3 guardians on the deck. One guardian was standing near the main sail post while the other 2 guarded the ship's front. Despite the cloak, the other soldiers seemed they could see through the cloak. Otherwise, the soldier wouldn't have nodded at Michael, who was invisible. Michael nodded back while looking at the soldier closely. The armor protected the whole body by covering head to toe. However, a gap between the chest plate and helmet exposed the neck by several inches. The gap was not wide enough for a sword to cut through, but Michael's hidden blades could. Michael adjusted his armor sleeves to form a gap so the hidden blades could come out without damaging the silver armor. Looking at the soldier, Michael moved his hand behind and took out a copper coin from his system storage. The coin was made of junk metal and enhanced by Eladir's runes, just like his spiders. Hence, when Michael sent a spider carrying the coin to the ledge near the soldier, they triggered no arrays. When the spider dropped the coin a few meters away from the soldier, Michael activated the copper coin. For a moment, it flickered, and then it produced a low-pitched whistling sound. What the? The soldier signaled Michael to keep his eyes on him before turning and walking towards the coin. The soldiers on the front were still looking at the other side. The 2 of them seemed to be having an interesting conversation in Michael's eyes. Instead of following the soldier's order, Michael floated toward him, without making a sword. As a result, the soldier had no idea Michael was behind him when he bent down to pick up the coin. Pulch. The latest episodes are on under the website. Michael grabbed his neck from behind and immediately sent his hidden blade through the armor gap. GRR. The soldier made a sickening growl as Michael cut his vocal cords and threw him off the ledge. 2 down, 2 to go. Even though the soldiers were elites, they were inside the void, making them powerless in front of Michael. While walking toward the 2 soldiers, the atmosphere grew darker as Michael cast the Death Range spell to enhance his powers to a terrifying level. We are really going to capture the Dark Lord. Those amateurs in the guild just overhyped him. In truth, they are just incompetent. No shit. That's why they are still guardians, and we are hunters. The 2 soldiers gossiped, having no idea death was nearing them. I'm excited to receive a huge bonus from Alpha Guardian. How much do you think it is? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure I can afford a mansion and a huge piece of land with it. Considering it was nighttime, the soldiers failed to notice the darkness formed by the Death Range. Besides, Michael floated towards them, so they heard no footsteps. Hello, boys. They heard a sudden cold voice and tried to turn around. However, Michael grabbed both of them by their necks and tightened his grasp, crushing their helmets. Their armor flickered, revealing the caved-in heads. The next moment, Michael tossed them down from the ship. Finally, Michael cleared all the guards on the upper deck. My lord, Miss Peyton has arrived, Azazel's voice sounded in his head. Stall her. I'm on my way to the dining area. It's time the soldiers tasted my blood tonic. Michael looked around the empty deck. The latest website. I still got it. Michael felt proud of his handiwork. In a matter of a couple of minutes, he assassinated 4 elites like they were nothing. It had been so long since he used his assassin skills in this world. With a proud grin under the helmet, Michael made his way to the ship's center, where he saw a latch. Pulling up the latch, Michael opened the doorway to the lower decks. He climbed down the ladder and reached a narrow hallway lit with elegant small chandeliers. He stepped on a ruby-red carpet that ran from the ladder to the other parts of the ship. A few meters away from Michael, he noticed a soldier guarding a door, and when he noticed Michael, he turned his head. What are you doing down here? The guardian asked. Man, I need to get something to eat. I'm starving. Michael quickly disabled his cloak and rubbed his belly. Damn it, man, Quickly eat something and return to your post. The Guardian had a British accent which slightly surprised Michael and reminded him of the time Michael traveled to London to kill a billionaire in his own mansion. Will do. Michael slowly walked towards the soldier while looking around to see if he could find any clues to locate the kitchen. Seeing Michael approaching him, the soldier raised his hand. Where are you going, mate? The dining area is through that door. The soldier pointed at the door couple of doors away from the door Michael was at. Michael expected the soldier to point out the way because only one of two things could have happened. 1. The soldier would point out the right way. Else, he would suspect Michael and try to apprehend him, which would have resulted in Michael killing him and burning his body to ashes with dark flames. Luckily for the soldier, he chose the first option. My mind is boggled, man. Thanks anyways. You want anything? Yeah, get me a pastry on your way out, the soldier said as Michael nodded. Sure thing, as he reached the door to the kitchen. He twisted the copper knob and was welcomed by an enormous high-ceilinged room, large enough to contain at least 70 people, with mounds of glittering brass pots and pans heaped around the stone walls and a great brick fireplace at the other end. In addition, there were 7 rows of long oak tables and benches for the Guardians to dine on. At that moment, the kitchen was rather empty, and only a few Guardians sat on the benches, having their fill. All the oak tables had several pots and bowls filled with various dishes. When Michael reached one of the oak tables, he grabbed a pastry, lifting his helmet a bit. Not bad, the pastry melted in his mouth. He took a big bite and made his way to the brass pots. I thought only we have a break, seeing Mykoff, a blonde-haired soldier who was having porridge, said. I am starving. Can't be on an empty stomach when we catch the Dark Lord. Can we? Michael amused. Can't argue with that point. Finish it quickly, Mac. We can't be late to receive the Dark Lord. Michael was pleasantly surprised. Visit. For a better user experience. Is that so? You guys are so lucky, you get to see the Dark Lord up close. The blonde soldier rolled his eyes. Lucky my ass. I'd rather guard Lady Tiriana's room than stay close to that creepy fucker. Still standing near a brass pot, Michael asked the soldiers. Speaking of Lady Tiriana, I have a message for her. From Alpha Guardian. I need to get that to her ASAP. Then what are you doing here? Lady Tiriana's room is on the other side. Another red-haired Guardian with a long cut across his tanned face spoke in a thick accent. I will go. After I taste this baby. Michael pretended to take a long whiff of the aroma from the brass pot before him. You guys tried this? Asked Michael, ignoring the red-haired man. What's in there? Asked another soldier. Meanwhile, Michael controlled the spider he used to distract the soldier to crawl through the hallway. Fortunately, Michael found a map of the interior on the wall. It made sense to make a painting of the map and hang this on the wall for the soldiers to navigate through this giant ship. Chicken soup. What the hell? Let's have a taste, shall we? Michael grabbed 5 ceramic bowls from the table beside him and filled them with the chicken soup while showing his back to the Guardians. With fast and precise movements, Michael took out blood tonic, which was a muddy brown potion, poured it into the bowls, and turned around. The brown potion quickly became colorless and blended with the chicken soup. Here you go, guys. Michael memorized the map as he put the bowls on the table. You should go now, the red-haired man coldly said after Michael took a sip of the soup. Okay, geesh. You're aiming for Employee of the Month or something. Michael's words made the others chuckle while Michael grabbed a bunch of pastries. This is for me to have on the way. Michael walked away from the Guardians. On his way towards the door, he looked over his shoulder to see all of them take a long sip of chicken soup. When he came out of the kitchen, he quickly took out another blood tonic potion and drenched them in the potion. For a moment, the pastries looked wet, but soon, they regained their usual crispy texture after the pastries absorbed the nanites. Then, Michael navigated through the hallway according to the map, and on his way, he handed over pastries to the Guardians patrolling the hallways. Only then did Michael realize how hungry these soldiers were. It didn't even take any effort to make them eat the pastries. The latest episodes are on under the website. Is everything ready? As he was walking in the hallway, on his way to Tiriana's room, Michael saw Zanali escorted by 3 Guardians walking towards him. Yes, Guardian Captain. Everything is in place. Good. I don't want any surprises. Suddenly Zanali turned her gaze away from the Guardian beside her to Michael, who was standing in the hallway with a pastry in his hand. What are you doing? Despite the situation, Michael remained calm. For an assassin, it was paramount to stay calm since panicking wouldn't solve anything. Hungry Guardian Captain. Michael sounded like an embarrassed more solid. Seeing him scratch the back of his neck, Zanali rolled her eyes. Plop. Surprisingly, she slapped his hand with enough force to make him drop the pastry in his hand. "Return to your post before I make you have no post to return to," she growled. "Yes, yes, Guardian Captain." Michael turned his tone to sound apologetic, bowing his head. He remained, bending his back until Zanali walked away to a safe distance from him. "What a colossal bitch!" Michael looked at her figure disappearing before resuming his journey to Tiriana's room adjacent to Captain's cabin. "All Guardians, be alert. The target has reached the loading area and is on its way to the interrogation room." All of a sudden, Michael heard a rough female voice echoing through the hallways. After navigating through the maze of a hallway, Michael finally reached a lavish wooden door flanked by 2 elites. The next door was also flanked by 2 elites, so, in total, there were 2 doors and 4 elites in front of him. It was kinda problematic since the 2 doors and Guardian were standing next to each other. Luckily for Michael, no elites were inside the captain's cabin and Tiriana's room. He could see Tiriana curling into a ball on her bed while the captain read the map on a table. Thanks to his thermal vision enabled him to see through walls. Fortunately, Michael had the distracting copper coins and countless spiders in his storage. He put his hands behind his back, retrieving another spider and a coin. The spider grabbed the coin and crawled through Michael's legs, avoiding their gazes. The spider and the copper coin perfectly blended with the ruby-red carpet they were standing on. "You have a reason to be here? I am making sure everything is in place." Alpha Guardian's orders. Michael was always prepared to kill them. It would only take him a couple of seconds to kill all of them, but he decided to deal with them stealthily instead of like a murdering maniac. Visit. For the best known experience anyone could kill, but only an assassin or a killer like Michael could kill with finesse. Ding. This time, the coin made a loud noise attracting the 4 Guardians' attention. "Did you hear that?" One soldier at each door walked towards where the noise came from, leaving one behind as they should. Looking at the 2 soldiers at the door at a 3-meter distance and the 2 soldiers walking away, Michael cracked his neck. The very next moment, Michael dashed at the first soldier, slashing his throat with his hidden blade. Then, before the blood splashed onto the floor, Michael activated the death range and fired a powerful bolt of lightning through the other Guardian's head. He didn't stop as he drew the sword on the Guardian's sheath and threw the sword at the Guardian, who turned back, hearing the thud sounds made by the 2 dead soldiers. The sword went straight through his head as soon as he turned around. Then using the walls as his steps, Michael parkoured to the remaining Guardian. Ignitia in mid-air. Michael pointed his finger as the golden lightning bolt shot out of his finger and went through the Guardian's throat, forming a hole in his neck. From slashing the first Guardian's throat with his hidden blade to killing the last one with a lightning bolt happened within 5 seconds. The elites couldn't even lift their fingers in front of his inhuman speed, technique, and strength boosted by the death range. Killing them was only half the battle, as Michael had to dispose of the bodies. Quickly Michael dragged the 4 bodies while spraying the potion he brewed to clean the bloodshed onto the walls and the floor through a sprayer attached to the center of his gloves. Chapter 477 mentions the upgrades done to the armor. Michael looked around with his X-ray vision to see no one was coming his way. The captain in the cabin didn't seem like he heard a thing as he was still reading a map. Instead of going into the captain's cabin, Michael decided to greet Tiriana. But when he touched the doorknob he felt an electric shock. "System, unlock the door for me." After seeing the golden runes on the room, he realized Tanulia placed runes on the door to protect Tiriana. The system requires 6,000 Batis points to disable the runes. "Do it." A bright light shot out of Michael's hand to the door. Then, the glowing runes dimmed out in a few blinks of an eye. With a grin, Michael twisted the knob as the door opened with a crackling sound. He took a step inside the room and saw Tiriana curling into a ball on her white bed. "Knock knock elf, your death is here, visit." For the best known experience. Tiriana, who heard these words weakly, opened her eyes. After Michael demonstrated his skills to Asian and Alred 3 days ago, he went to one of Michael's restaurant competitors, the Ruby Cuisine. Michael poisoned her food with blood tonic without her knowledge or anyone. Ever since that day, Michael has been controlling the Nanites and causing her pain. Chapter 495 mentions Tiriana's arrival at Adrizel. Tanulia found the spiders because of Noah. They thought they found all the spiders in the warship except the one Michael left in Peyton's body. Michael knew they had found the spiders and tried to manipulate him by feeding him false information. But Peyton's dedication to catching him really surprised Michael. She really went all in, and if it wasn't for the spider in her body, Michael would have been in the interrogation room right now instead of in Tiriana's room. Who are? She was so weak and barely uttered these words. Looking at Michael dragging the dead bodies, She tried to rise up from the bed but only to fail again and again. After dragging their bodies inside, Michael closed the door. "Ah, you want to get up?" Seeing Tiriana struggling and trying to reach for the dagger on a table beside the bed, Michael stepped toward the bed, bang! With a single punch to the side of her face, Michael knocked out Tiriana. "Now it's time to clear their bodies." Michael turned around, controlling the air in the room to lift the bodies into the sky. However, he couldn't lift the body in the air because of his weak wind manipulation rate. If he tried to use the dark flames to burn them without creating a wind cocoon around the bodies, the entire room would be on fire and soon the whole ship. Damn it! Michael yet again raised his hand as a small whirlwind appeared in the room, but he soon lost control over the whirlwind. Several sweat beads appeared on his forehead, but he still couldn't lift one body. Plan B then. Wind blast. Since he couldn't burn the bodies, Michael raised his hand, sending a powerful blast of wind. The wind blast hurled the bodies under Tiriana's bed. Although it wasn't the perfect hiding spot, no one would find the bodies unless one looked under the bed. Besides, Michael didn't need to keep the bodies hidden for long. "Come here, sweetie pie." Michael lifted Tiriana from the bed in his arms. His next destination was closer. The captain's cabin. While walking out of the room, he looked around with his X-ray vision. Fortunately, no one was approaching. Blood bags and retractable dagger. Tanulia appeared in the corner of his vision. He saw her through the spy cam in the undead's eyes. "Bravo!" Michael chuckled as he arrived in front of the captain's cabin's door. Standing before the door, he put down Tiriana on her feet. Bang! Visit! For a better user experience, Michael kicked open the door, startling the plump bald man on the other side of the oak table. "Move an inch and I will break her neck." His face might be covered by the helmet, but it couldn't hide the killing intent in his voice. "Who are you?" the captain asked. "Raise your arms in the sky," Michael calmly asked, but the captain seemed reluctant. With a flick of his wrist, Michael took out a dagger and placed it against Tiriana's neck. Okay. Seeing the knife against her neck, the captain immediately raised his arms over his head. "Now, if you do everything I say when I say, you and she will live." Using his legs, Michael closed the door without taking his eyes off the man. "You have no idea who you're messing with," the captain growled. "Funny. I was about to say the same." Michelle moved the dagger pointing at the captain. Lightning dash instantly, a lightning bolt shot out of his hand. The captain's body went rigid as the lightning bolt hit the wall behind him, just avoiding his head by a couple of inches. You. The captain stuttered in fear. Only one could use spells inside the void line, and it was the Dark Lord. Realizing the man before him might be the Dark Lord sent shivers running down his spine. He immediately began to tremble as he drenched his white robes with sweat. A rectangular box vaguely resembled a flight dashboard with several levers and colorful buttons a couple of meters behind the captain. Michael could see the endless crystal ocean outside through the windows above the console. "Set a course to your headquarters in Draddle. Or the next one goes through your head." Seeing the tiny lightning bolts dancing around his arm, the captain shivered. At that moment, the only thought the captain had was getting out of here alive. Unlike the rest of the ship, he wasn't an elite guardian. Tanulia hired him as the ship captain just a week ago, and if he knew he would be in the same room with the Dark Lord, he wouldn't have taken the damn job despite the handsome wage. He regretted leaving the Guardian Guild in a drizzle. "Just don't kill me," the captain slowly walked backward, keeping his arms in the air. "Don't give me a reason to," Michael calmly said. After reaching the dashboard, the captain pulsed the red lever and pressed some buttons on the dashboard. "Visit." For the best known experience, "It's done." The captain turned around. "Good," Michael nodded and stayed silent for a few moments. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room, Tanulia just unmasked the undead. "It's showtime." Michael paid the system another 100 badass points. Soon, his silver armor faded into thin air, revealing his Lucifer armor. Instantly, the room lost all the light and grew darker. "Now tell me, Captain, have you ever taken an innocent life?" The captain was startled by his question. But, of course he had taken innocent lives. During his visit to a village in a drizzle, he slapped a slave he bought from the southern continent to death because she refused to pleasure him. It was quite usual among the nobles. But he didn't dare to say anything to the Dark Lord. "No, never." "Fair enough," the captain sighed in relief. Though his relief only lasted a second as Michael cast the wind blast but manipulated the wind element to change the shape of the blast. He created a wind blade. It was his first time manipulating the wind element to transform the wind blast into a wind blade. His wind blade was surprisingly good enough to cleave the captain's head off his shoulder. The captain's headless body staggered around the room, spraying blood all over the room while his head hit the table with a sickening thud. He was lying, Michael told Tiriana as though she was awake. He moved on to put Tiriana on the oak table and took out a spider to record his message to Tanulia. After recording everything he wanted, he planned to send the feed to the mini projector he left in the undead's mouth. Tanulia would think it was a live feed. Still, in reality, it was a pre-recorded feed made by Michael to distract everyone. A few minutes later, Michael left the room, disguising himself as an elite guardian. The room was painted red with the captain and Tiriana's blood. To this moment, Tanulia had no idea her friend had exploded to death. Again, I wonder what your future Supreme Guardian has to say about your plan. Particularly the part where you endanger his little sister's life. Michael watched Azazel talk through the voice modulator attached to the undead's throat while going to the interrogation room. Michael was curious to see Tanulia's expression, and he was surprised when he saw the calm look on her face. They knew the vampires were going to kidnap her and force her to retrieve that key, Michael said to himself. If I am right, they are planning to kill the vampires after she retrieves the key. Then they will take the key from her. Michael was more curious about the key now. The vampires were desperate to find it, and the Guardians also seemed interested in the key. What surprised Michael was that Tanulia hid the fact she was using Sabrina from Noah. Officer, Michael knew if Noah knew Tanulia put his sister in danger, he would put Tanulia through hell. But in case Michael knew Sabrina was his little sister, he would have massacred every single Guardian on the ship and gone straight for Tanulia's head. Wondering what might the key unlock, Michael navigated through the corridors to the interrogation room, visit. For the best known experience, hey, when he arrived in front of the mirror, a fellow elite guardian greeted him with a nod. None of them had an idea that the real Dark Lord was watching the interrogation with them. He stood with 4 other guardians while Zanali stood closer to the mirror a couple of feet in front of them. Gaia made him promise that he wouldn't kill Zanali. Otherwise, he would have killed her by now. And who are you, cat? 2 others, only Peyton, Tanulia, and the undead were in the room. However, there was another figure who remained invisible. Even the elites failed to see him as his invisibility cloak was much more powerful and better than the elite guardians. Michael saw his 7-feet figures via thermal vision. His figure vaguely resembled the tiger hybrid Jacoby he killed when Gaia returned from the Fire Realm. If his memory served him right, he might be the Black Panther beastmen he saw while watching Tanulia's warship feed. Chapter 469 mentioned the Black Panther beastman. Michael had a feeling that he was here to protect Tanulia if this went south. Michael also noticed a medallion on her neck, radiating immense power. System scanned that medallion. As usual, the system asked for 2,000 badass points. In a couple of moments he heard back from the system. The system has finished the scan. The medallion contains a sophisticated rune that will teleport Tanulia to an unknown location in case her life is threatened. Why am I not surprised? It made sense to Michael. She was way high in the Guardian hierarchy, and they wouldn't let her come to the southern continent without any contingencies to save her life. Killing her would take much more time and preparation. All these medallions, runes, and guardians could only protect her for a short amount of time. As soon as Michael reaches the fusion stage, he would end her life regardless of whom or what she has to protect herself. The moment she destroyed the Silent Reaper, she sealed her fate. Set a course to Draddle. Elders will meet us there. Michael saw Tanulia turning her head and looking at Zanali. Zanali nodded at Tanulia before leaving for the captain's room, where Michael left some nice surprises for her. After Zanali left, Tanulia smacked her forehead. What am I thinking? Visit. For a better user experience, remove his mask. I want to see who is behind that mask, Tanulia ordered Peyton as the elites outside the room took a step forward. One of those elites was Michael. Sometime in the future, under the pitch-black sky, a castle menacingly stood in the middle of thousands of warriors. The sky was lit by the hundreds of fireballs, lightning bolts, and meteors sent by the mages down and in the air. The castle's black walls remained firm despite being bombarded by thousands of angry mobs. They all looked like ants in front of the giant castle. As far as one could see, there was nothing but scorched land around the castle, which was previously crowded with ancient forests. Suddenly, as they were sieging the castle vibrated, resonating an ear-piercing howling sound. Boom! As the sound traveled for hundreds of miles, a ring of dark flames expanded rapidly, burning everyone in the vicinity to ashes. Cast the light barrier. The hundreds of mages in white robes shouted as loud as they could and formed a human chain around the castle. Then they all raised their staff towards the sky as it slowly split open to release a bright white light. Just as the bright light was coming from the sky, a dark mist surrounded the castle, turning the surroundings darker than before. At the same time, thousands of warships were approaching the castle on the horizon. The staff of the mages began to radiate a dim light on the ground. Soon, the dim light weaved a shield in front of them. When the dark flames met the shield, its movement was halted. The dark flames tried to push through the force field as cracks formed in the white shield. Fighting one of the most powerful primordial flames, the immortal mages broke into a sweat. Meanwhile, in one of the warships approaching the castle, a golden-haired man was staring at the map of the dark forest. Several other men adorned with golden armor stood around the large oak table, and they all bore serious expressions on their faces. "General Evan, what are your next orders?" One of the golden-armored warriors asked General Evan Clark. "Push forward." "Permission to speak freely, General," another golden-armored warrior asked General Clark. "Permission granted." When Evan nodded, the soldier removed his golden helmet to reveal her alluring face and striking golden hair. Despite their real age, they all looked like they were in their early 30s because of their cultivation levels. "Evan, why are we sending half of our troops to the castle where we know the Dark Lord isn't?" "We all know the Dark Lord is in the crypt. Visit." For the best known experience, the other soldiers didn't speak a word, but they all agreed with her. Unlike her, they couldn't ask the general so freely. "Because we have someone far more important in that castle who could end this war forever." The soldiers were stunned as Evan let out a deep breath. "Listen to me, men. I was instructed not to disclose the information until I got the confirmation. Now that I received it from the Queen, it's time for you to know our real objective." Everyone's gaze was on Evan for what he was about to tell them. But, instead of explaining, Evan flicked his wrist as a holographic image of an infant child appeared above the table. "We have confirmation that the Dark Child is in the castle." The golden-haired lattice eyes went wide as the others looked pale behind their helmets. It's a rumor. Isn't it?" A soldier stuttered, trembling in fear. "It's not a rumor. The Dark Child is real. Our orders are to kill the Dark Child no matter the cost." The soldiers were stunned by his words as the golden-haired woman strolled to Evan from the other side of the table. "Even if it's the spawn of the Dark Lord and the Dark Queen, we don't kill a child, Evan. We are no different than the Dark Lord if we did that," she gravely said. "Orders are orders, Victoria, and this order came directly from the Queen. Evan dash." "It's General Evan, Captain Victoria." Evan cut her off in the middle before she could finish her sentence. "Yes, General." Her eyes showed reluctance, but she decided to follow his lead. Because he was not only the general but also her husband. "General, if the Dark Child is in the castle, the Dark Queen won't be too far. We have no idea about her whereabouts. But expect high resistance from the Dark Lord's army. They wouldn't let us kill the child so easily." With another flick of his wrist, the child's image disappeared, and the castle appeared before them. Evan pointed to a red on the far east side of the castle where the castle's fire-breathing tower was located. The tower was built to resemble a sleeping dragon and breathed fire through its mouth. "This is our inn. The Nightmare Tower breath fire every 10 seconds, and when it's getting ready for the next breath, we will fly into its mouth. Place these charges." Evan's ring on his finger let out a dim glow as several dark bricks appeared on the table. "Destroy the tower and fight our way to the center where we believe the child is," Evan said, the latest laser website. To this day, no one has stepped into the castle because of the fear toxin. So we are going in blind. Expect Alpha Undead, the Dark Assassins, and every type of Dark Lord's army to be inside. Although Evan heard no disagreement with the plan, he knew the meaning of their silence. He had been leading the troops for years, and they didn't have to use words to speak their minds. Instead, Evan could understand them. Anyone with a brain could tell that the plan was suicide, yet the orders directly came from the Queen herself. The Queen's words were absolute. They wouldn't have stood a chance against the Dark Lord without her. Her courageous leadership and the God of Light's power made fighting the Dark Lord possible. When he first heard he had to kill a child, Evan immediately opposed the order, just like Victoria. However, the Queen showed him the future. The Dark Child held the key to opening the portals to the other universes. According to the Queen, the Dark Lord was planning to revive the ancient gods to life again. If the portal is opened, the Dark Lord can travel between the universes in his physical form. Once it happened, no one can stop the Dark Lord, not even the God of Light. Evan recalled the Queen's words. The Dark Lord must not revive the ancient gods. Evan, ancient gods. Evan mumbled under his breath. The queen had never looked so serious before. But when she spoke about the ancient gods, Evan saw the fear in her eyes. General! General, the soldier shouted, stopping Evan's train of thoughts. I know it sounds like a suicide mission, and most of us won't survive the battle. But no matter what, we must reach the child and end its life before it ends our world. Evan paused for a moment before continuing. While we are fighting our way through the castle, our remaining forces will focus on sieging the castle in all directions. This would keep the Dark Lord's forces busy and give us some breathing room. What about the Dark Lord General? Victoria raised a question. If he decides to show up, you know our plan will go down the drain. Just a thought of the Dark Lord appearing gave them chills. The last time the Dark Lord appeared, he killed 3,000 elites of the Great 8 clans and 100 immortals in a few seconds like they were nothing. We don't have to worry about him. The Queen will keep him busy. Once we place these charges, it will turn off the castle's defense mechanisms for 20 minutes. Even after explaining the plan, something felt off to Evan, like it's just a tiny part of the Queen's plan. I don't like this plan, not even a bit. But we will follow you to the Hell Realm itself, General. Victoria placed her hand on her chest and spoke loud and clear. It's been an honor working with you people, Evan said, looking at each and every one of his men and women who fought beside him for more than 10 years. Visit. For a better user experience, General Evan, a white-robed man, entered the room. We will reach our destination in 5 minutes. Evan nodded as the man left the room, leaving them to their meeting. Leave us alone and regroup at the cargo bay in 4 minutes. The soldiers bowed and left the room, leaving Victoria and Evan alone. You don't like this plan, do you, Evan? Victoria walked toward Evan with a gentle smile on her face to calm him down. She placed her hand on his shoulder. We'll get through this, Evan. We always do. Evan lost his general domineer as he tilted his head, resting his head on her hand. Don't hate me for making you do this, Victoria, Evan said in an apologetic tone. You're just following orders, Evan. I know. My only question is, why can't we take the child hostage and force the Dark Lord to surrender? Too many variables, the Queen said. She said the child would let the Dark Lord travel between universes in his physical form, Victoria. Once it happens, she said he could revive the ancient gods. I feel like there is more to the ancient gods than we know of, Evan. Do you remember the rumors that an ancient god revived the god of light? Victoria asked as Evan sighed. He took his head off her hand and looked at the castle in the distance through the windows. It's just a rumor, Victoria. All the ancient gods have been in an eternal slumber. It's what the Queen said. Victoria's brow arched up. We cannot doubt the Queen now, Victoria, not when we are so close to ending the war. Evan took his gaze away from the castle and looked Victoria in the eyes. Oh, come on, Evan, she rolled her eyes. The odds are we are going to die today. So we can speak freely. Look, I don't trust and worship the Queen as you and the others do. She and I have a common enemy, the Dark Lord. Her leadership is what gave us a fighting chance against him. I give her that. But that doesn't mean we have to trust her blindly. There's nothing wrong with questioning her, Evan. Evan knew Victoria had always been skeptical about the Queen and the information she's been providing them. But, of course, the majority of the people believed and worshipped the Queen. But a few people like Victoria questioned the Queen's motives. I don't think the Dark Lord will literally go to hell and heaven to revive good guys, Victoria. Whatever these ancient gods are, they are bad news, said Evan. But I still remember Layla's last words. Evan. You weren't there. Layla was about to say something about the ancient god, but the Queen killed her. Victoria emphasized the word the. I can still hear her last words and her smile, Evan. Every night I closed my eyes. I could see her smiling even when she knew she was going to die. Visit. For the best known experience, Victoria's eyes watered without her control as she recalled Layla's last words. The ancient god Dawn is coming for you. Inside the dark castle was dark room lit with crimson red light. There was nothing in the room except a sizable black bed, a cradle near the bed, and a large mirror facing the bed's head. Arg! A woman dressed in entirely black armor growled, struggling to reach for the child crying in the cradle. She held her stomach in one hand and used the other hand to move toward the child. The baby kept crying for its mother, and only when the woman touched the child it stopped crying. Come here, gritting her teeth to fight the pain. He gently lifted the baby from the cradle and placed it on her chest. Who hurt my butterball? She kissed the baby, as though the baby sensed its mother's pain. It tried to reach out for her face with its tiny soft hands. My lady. Suddenly, a ghostly figure appeared in the room near the cradle. The ghostly figure resembled a middle-aged man in a butler uniform. His glowing ruby eyes were the main attraction to his face other than his raven black hair. You're awake. Didn't I tell you stop appearing suddenly? It'd freak him out, Azazel. Yes, the butler was Azazel, and the woman was none other than Gaia. After hearing her complaint, Azazel embarrassedly smiled. I heard him cry, my lady. How was the funeral? Gaia's voice was heavy. The question made the smile on Azazel's face fade away instantly. They had lost a valuable member 2 days ago. The entire castle and the army mourned the loss. The assassins took it pretty hard, my lady, Azazel said as Gaia sighed. I can't blame them. She practically raised them. May her soul rest in peace. Gaia stood up with the child resting on her chest. Here, with a flick of her wrist, she took out a silver medallion which had the name Aria Atronius engraved in golden letters. Place this on her grave. A dim light emerged from Azazel's hand, engulfing the medallion. Then, the light disappeared along with the medallion in Gaia's hand. My lady, we cannot stay here for long. Our informants in the Sky Hall said they dispatched several demigods to siege the castle. I don't think we can hold them off. Gaia's face turned gloomy as the child began to cry again. No, Butterball. I'm not going to let anyone in your home. She lifted the baby gently in the air and smiled at him. Visit. For the best known experience seeing her smile, the baby stopped crying. I can take them down if our defenses failed. No, you cannot, my lady. Not with the curse on your body. You need to rest until my lord finds a way to lift the curse. Azazel's voice almost sounded like he was ordering Gaia. He had seen enough deaths recently and would rather die than see something happens to the Dark Queen. He should be leading the army against that bitch instead of wasting his time trying to lift my curse. Her voice slightly stuttered. Should I inform my lord about Lady Audria's death, my lady? And oh, Gaia immediately raised her voice as the lights began to flicker. He still hasn't gotten over Nightmare's death. If you inform him that Aria is dead, he will lose it. We have to give him strength, not weaknesses. Her eyes watered up, thinking that Nightmare was no longer with them. Yet, every time she closed her eyes, she could see her memories of Nightmare flash across her eyes. It felt like yesterday they won Nightmare in a bet against Jane Totonk. In a blink of an eye, 200 years passed by. However, when she thought Nightmare died, defending Rivertown by himself made her proud. He defended Rivertown for 3 days from Sky Hall. Even after using almost every resource they had, the Sky Hall failed to take over the Rivertown. He burned hundreds of half-immortals before falling to the dragon hunters of the Queen. After seeing Nightmare's lifeless body, Gaia went on a killing spree and did not stop until every single dragon hunter lost their head. She thought killing the dragon hunters would make her feel better. But she didn't. The loss of Nightmare was something she could easily handle. Boom. All of a sudden, the entire castle trembled violently as Gaia was thrown off balance. Luckily, she quickly grabbed the bed in one hand to steady herself. Immediately Azazel disappeared from the room to check what was happening. At that time, the baby in her hand began to cry, sensing the danger approaching it. When the tremor stopped, the mirror before the bed flickered, revealing the Dark Lord's face. Michael! Straight away, his face put a smile on her face. She sighed in relief. Papa, the baby tried to reach for him. Hey little guy, Michael smiled at the baby. Despite his smile, Gaia could see the pain in his eyes. Being the Dark Lord wasn't his choice. Rather, the Sky Hall pushed him to be one. They needed a villain so they could be the saviors. The Michael in front of her was not the Michael she met. He was funny, calm and relaxed person. However, ever since he took the mantle of the Dark Lord, he changed into a whole different person. Of course not by choice, but the pressure, danger and the responsibility of saving the world took its toll on both his mind and body. Gaia, you have to use the key now. The moment Gaia heard these words, her mind went blank. Visit. For the best known experience, there is no way, Gaia. The Queen is more powerful than we thought. I don't think I can hold her off much longer. Don't play with me, human. My lady. Azazel appeared yet again in the room, but unlike before, his ghostly figure kept flickering. My lord, when he noticed Michael in the mirror, Azazel weakly bowed. The elites are there, aren't they? Michael asked as Azazel nodded. Code 0 is a go, Azazel. Gaia saw Azazel's ghostly figure turning red. What is Code 0? Gaia gawked at Azazel and Michael, having no idea of Code 0. But seeing the grave look on their faces, she lost all the color on her face. She held the baby tightly in her arms. It's been an honor serving you, my lord, Azazel's voice stuttered. I wish I had seen him grow up to be a fine young man. Azazel let out a miserable smile as his face was plastered with grief and sadness. Yet, when Gaia looked into his eyes, she saw nothing but fulfillment. Azazel. Goodbye, my lady. Boom! Gaia saw Azazel explode into a puff of smoke. Her jaw dropped while her legs turned jelly. Soon, in front of her eyes, the white smoke formed a portal. Use the key on him, Gaia, she dropped to her knees, tears gushing out of her pale face. No, there has to be another way, human. You always find a way. Michael's eyes watered as his eyes watered. This is the only way, Gaia. We can stop everything. We can stop the queen before came into existence. What about me? What about our child? What about our existence? Gaia's tears rained down on the baby's face. The little one reached out to Gaia's face and wiped off the tears with his little hand. If we don't do this, she will use him to open portals to other universes. He will suffer for eternity, Gaia. Cough. Suddenly, Gaia coughed up blood. The excruciating pain caused by the curse returned. Trust my Gaia. This is the only way. Use the key and send him to Etheria before they get to him. He will cease to exist if I activate the machine before you send him there. Visit. For the best known experience, Etheria is the universe of anti-hero with a symbiote system. No, no, no. Her voice stuttered. Gaia held the baby as tight as she could. Compared to the pain of leaving her son, the pain caused by the curse was nothing. His innocent face that stared at her blankly without any idea clenched her heart. Boom, boom, boom. The castle yet again trembled violently. If you don't do this, he's good as dead, Gaia. Use that key now. Michael's shout stopped the castle from shaking. His shout just killed hundreds of half-immortals who approached Gaia's room. If he hadn't used his strength trying to revive the ancient gods, he could have single-handedly wiped off the queen's army. However, even with the system's help, it was impossible to kill the queen without the ancient gods and Hunter. Hunter is the MC of Dictator with a badass system. The queen was not a being that belonged to a single universe. Instead, according to ancient god Night, she split her soul into pieces and sent each piece to a universe. To kill her, one must kill all the soul pieces. Otherwise, she would born again and again until she turns the entire universe into mindless minions whose sole purpose is worshipping her and conquering the worlds. Michael temporarily sealed his universe using 2 billion badass points, preventing the queen from opening portals to the universes she had already conquered. His son held the key to open the universe and the queen would stop at nothing until she gets to him. With the system offline and half of his army wiped out, sending his son to Etheria and using the Silverhawk was the only way to stop the queen. Silverhawk was his reset button. This time, Michael would correct the mistakes he made. Tears kept gushing out of her eyes when she slowly removed the tiny golden key hanging around the baby's neck. Your father and I love you so much. No matter what it takes, we will find you, she kissed the baby's forehead softly. I am sorry, little guy. I wish things have gone different. Michael closed his eyes for a moment, letting out the tears he was holding. We will fix everything, Gaia, I promise you. I will save Nightmare, Cindy, Azazel and everyone. Michael's eyes turned blood red and Gaia saw everything turning darker. Removing the key from his neck, Gaia threw it into the portal Azazel created by sacrificing himself. As soon as she threw the key inside, the dark portal turned golden. No matter where you are, my love will always protect you, Butterball. She walked toward the portal carrying her son in her arms. Her body trembled, and it took all her strength even to take a step forward. Standing only a couple of inches away from the portal, she softly kissed his forehead. Then they both locked their gazes with the baby. Goodbye, Draven. Visit. For a better user experience. Chapter 525 The hunt for the key has begun. Present. The sun rose from its lazy slumber on the horizon, blessing the majestic Akilan realm with its golden light. Basked in the golden light, the silver stone walls of Mazeroth Castle reflected the sunlight like a mirror. The morning birds chirped away from the forest in search of food with the hope of a new day. But, compared to the birds, the people were lazy as hell. Except for early birds such as Kayla Martin and Gilrine, the others clung to their hot blanket on their beds. In one of the professor's rooms, Gaia abruptly rose up from her bed, drenched in her own sweat. She gasped as she breathed heavily up as her chest rose up and down frantically. She ran her hands through her face, breast, and arms like she was searching for something on her. What the fuck? What in the actual fuck? What in the goddamn actual fucking fuck? She cursed relentlessly before tossing the soft blanket away. Her room was not as big as the one in the dark forest. However, it was cozy, stone-floored, and warmed by the fireplace on the wall opposite the square table and chair for her to study. The sunlight peeked through the windows covered by navy blue curtains, making the sweat beads on her face sparkle like stars in the night sky. Only the night sky was her rosy face. She looked tense as she quickly tied her long raven black hair into a ponytail. Then, she flicked her wrist as the earpiece materialized on her palm. She put the earpiece into the ear, connected to Michael, and waited for him to answer. "Hey, Snakey, what's up?" She heard Michael's charmingly cheery voice. "I had a dream," she exclaimed. "Okay. Your voice tells me it's not a good dream." Gaia wanted to tell what she dreamt of. However, most of the details became hazy as she couldn't remember everything except her son's face. "I can't remember his name. His name, what was it? My son," she began to blabber. "Take a deep breath." Michael's voice turned rather serious. "We had a son in my dreams. Something happened. We lost." She talked in broken sentences. Taking Michael's advice, she calmed herself by taking a few long deep breaths. Obviously, she knew what she experienced was a bad dream. Still, it felt so real. The feeling of throwing her son into a golden portal and the sight of Michael's body withering into dust was etched into her mind. "Now tell me what you dreamt," Michael asked after Gaia's breathing became normal. She stood up, walking to the windows. She then slid open the windows to let the morning light shine on her face. The beautiful sight of lush green land, the crystal blue lake, and the forest surrounding the castle soothed her soul. "I can't remember everything, Michael. But it felt so real. We had a son. I can remember his innocent face but not his name. Something happened, and I threw him into a golden portal. I can vaguely remember we were at war and I had this pain all over my body. Hey, listen to me. It's just a dream. Last night we were talking about Sky Hall and having a family. That's the reason for your dream. Just don't worry, okay? I am here." His calm words always reassured her and gave her courage. This time wasn't an exception. "Hey, are you talking to Gaia? Let us talk to her. Give that to me." Gaia heard Iag's shout, which put a delicate smile on her face. "Don't make me flick you, Iag. Just wait until I finish." "Okay, but finish quickly. You were talking for hours last night. It's our turn now." Iag reluctantly agreed not to bother him until he finished talking to Gaia. "What if everything I saw happened, human? What if it was the future? You said there's a possibility your future self traveled back in time just like Qinjiu." "Sigh," Gaia heard him sigh. "Listen. If I traveled back in time, the future us don't exist anymore. The last thing we need is to worry about the future that doesn't even happen. Just calm down and think about what we should do when you return." Gaia sensed a tinge of mischief in his voice. "You're not going to get anything until we get married. So don't get your hopes up." Gaia giggled, forgetting everything about the dream for a few moments. "Now tell me, where are you?" Gaia asked. "After talking to you, I will return to the ship to join Olivia. Cory's men would be there in an hour." "So what's your cover?" asked Gaia. Last night they spent talking about the vampires, Sky Hall, and finally having a family where Michael avoided the topic by telling her he feels sleepy. To be honest, Michael had no plans to have kids, especially after knowing everything about his enemies. However, there was no doubt in his mind they would use his child to get to him. On the contrary, Gaia wanted not one but a bunch of them. If he won the war against everyone, he might grant her wish. But not before that. "Well, Cory's men would attack our ship and take me hostage," Michael calmly said. "You can't let Olivia ruin your plans by bringing backup from Elon or informing the Guardians." "I will deal with that. You better be back in the dark forest when I return," Gaia threatened him playfully. She couldn't wait to reunite with him. The few weeks without him felt like an eternity. "I don't think getting the key would take more than a week." Since Noah risked his life to save mine, ID returned the favor by saving his little sister. When the elder vampire exploded, Noah jumped in front of him, forming a light shield around Michael. Although Michael could have teleported away from the arena, Noah risked his life to save him. That was the first time someone risked their life to save him. But for some reason, Michael felt indebted to Noah. He hated that feeling. Hence, he decided to get the key as well as save Sabrina so he could destroy the nagging feeling of being indebted to someone. Little did he know that it wasn't a feeling of being indebted but a little sister's calling for her big brother for help. So even though Michael was separated from his family by Sky Hall, they couldn't completely destroy the bond between him and his family. "Where is Nightmare?" Michael asked, changing the topic. He got into trouble with some other familiars. "Nothing to be worried about. Don't meddle with it. He needs to experience life alone. After everything was said and done, Michael gave the earpiece to Vidora. While they were talking to Gaia, Michael focused on brewing a few potions to fight the vampires. Since he planned to go in as Ghost rather than as the Dark Lord, he needed potions to fight the vampires. The dark flames danced over his hand, continuously spitting our crimson-red beads into the air. Michael merged all the beds into one and soon, they all split into several blood-red pills. Looking at the glowing crimson-red pills in the air, Michael grinned. I shall name you, Berserker Pills. Michael placed the pills on the table before removing the black bracelet from his wrist. Then, he slid open the cover to reveal an empty box with several runes glowing on the bottom. He slowly picked the pills one by one and placed them into the box. My lord, my men have seen your ship. I am waiting for your command. Do not attack until I say. Michael fitted the APD around his wrist. It's showtime. Michael turned around to look at Vidora. My lord! Out of the blue, Azazel appeared in the room. As usual, the demon butler greeted Michael with a bow. Monitor and record everything. Azazel, he stood up from his chair. And Corey, guard the waters all time. Follow me after I get to the target, and do not let anyone follow us. Yes, my lord. Corey agreed as expected. Since Michael had done everything he had to before leaving for Sabrina's ship, he threw a glance at Vidora and Azazel. Then, he willed the system to teleport him back to Olivia's ship. Then, in a blink of an eye, he vanished into thin air, leaving Azazel and Vidora behind. The waves crashed with the ship, continually shaking the ship left and right without giving it a break. Still, Olivia remained on the upper deck watching the raging storm with her emerald green eyes. The clouds cast shadows dark enough to make anyone think it was dawn. At that moment, no one except for Olivia was on the upper deck. The sailors asked her to return to her cabin, but she outright refused them. After what happened in Adrizel, she needed to be alone. The adrenaline kept her from losing her mind in overwhelming terror when she was in the arena. Since the adrenaline rush had died down, the terror slowly clenched her heart. The sight of vampires killing and sucking the victims' necks kept flashing across her eyes. The competition was supposed to be one of the most guarded events considering important people such as Eve Voldegard, Gabriel, and Hendrix were there. Nonetheless, the vampires massacred everyone and killed 80% of the alchemists in Elon and Azair. If she was in the spectator's stand instead of Ghost's side, she might have been a victim of a vampire. The thought gave her chills. Olivia! She snapped back from her thoughts when he felt a touch on her shoulder. She quickly jerked her head to the side to see Ghost standing beside her. What are you doing up here? You should be in your quarters. His calm expression held no worries or no trauma, and his eyes looked as calm as ever. He seemed like nothing had happened. You almost died, Olivia muttered. You are still in shock, Michael squeezed her shoulder. The feeling would go away eventually after you reach the sect. The world is a dangerous place. Olivia. That's why you have to be stronger. Both mentally and physically, Michael tried to calm her down while watching the vague silhouette of a ship approaching them. Unfortunately, Olivia couldn't see the ship due to the storm blocking her view. Are we truly safe anymore? The vampires, they killed Eva's guards like nothing. Even though I didn't know their cultivation level, they might be at least soul-refining stage warriors, she shivered. Everyone has weakness, Olivia, and the vampires aren't an exception. I am pretty sure Noah and his guardian buddies would soon find a way to neutralize the vampire problem. Don't let the fear get to your head, he let his words sink into her brain. The storm is getting worse, he emphasized the word storm. That was the key word for green-lighting the attack. As you wish, my lord. He heard Corey's voice in his head. Chapter 526 The one who hunted the vampires to extinction. Meanwhile, the vampires gathered around in a large spacious hall lit dimly with crimson-red chandeliers. They all stared at the elder vampire standing on the raised platform. The plumy brown-haired vampire paced left and right with his hands behind his back. Just looking at the deep frown on his face, one could tell the elder vampire was concerned about something. I always had low expectations of him. But holy fuck. The elder vampire sneered as two tall women robed in dark clothes approached him. Elder Hacken. The two women knelt in front of him as Hacken stopped pacing back and forth for a while. What is it? Elder Saber has reached our. He advised you to leave the castle and join him in Kingdom Chinland, one of the women informed Hacken indifferently. Did he tell you anything about what happened in Adrizel? Elder Saber said it's a matter for the council. Hacken exhaled deeply. To be honest, he expected the council to butt in after the stunt Griswold pulled in Adrizel. All the elder vampires wanted payback on guardians for exposing them, but none of them dared to wage war on them so openly except Griswold. Against all the elder vampires' advice, he attacked the alchemy competition in a drizzle and, shockingly, self-destructed himself. But, since Griswold was one of Hakon's adopted sons, Hakon had to answer the council's questions. Vampires were no different than the rest in terms of politics. Just a simple mishap and the other vampires would be gunning for Hakon's seat at the table. Griswold gave those vampires a weapon to use against him in the council meeting. While the situation tensed Hakon, the vampires in the hall gawked at him, having no idea why they were summoned. At least 50 vampires were staring at Hakon for some answers. "Tell Saber, I'll be on my way after tying up some loose ends in a drizzle. We are here to assist you on that, Elder Hakon," the women said in unison, with a long deep sigh. Hakon finally turned around to look at the vampires in the hall before him. They all went dead silent when they saw Hakon's gaze sweeping over them. "Look, I'm not big on speeches. I summoned you all because I have an order for all of you. As you may or may not know, Griswold attacked the alchemy competition and died in the process. Although what he did was extremely stupid, he was one of us. So we have to avenge him and make those who killed him pay." Hakon's cold voice resonated in the hall. "Anyone who brings me the heads of Noah, a guardian and ghost, a 5-star alchemist would receive the blessing to become an elder." As soon as the vampires heard Hakon, the vampires gasped in shock. Immediately their eyes were lit with excitement. Being an elder meant bigger hunting grounds and more power. No vampire would say no to those two things. Any vampire would literally kill another vampire to get bigger hunting grounds and power. Noah Winston is on his way to his home in Pentown. Ghost is in a merchant ship named Mary's Weather. According to our spies, his destination is Sunrise Sect in Bradford. Hakon had more information about Ghost to share with his minions. However, before sharing everything, his butler entered the stage through the door behind him. "Lord Hakon." Hakon looked over his shoulder to see his butler, a grey-robed white-haired man who seemed thin as a stick. "You have to see this," the butler said gravely, sensing the seriousness in his voice. Hakon turned around. Then, the old man took out an orb with a flick of his wrist. Hakon and the two women saw the castle's outskirts in the orb. When Hakon looked closer, he saw a black-armored figure slaughtering his minions and approaching the castle. "What the heck?" Hakon was stunned as the black-armored figure chopped down his minions' heads like vegetables. "We are under attack." The two women stood up to their feet, whereas Hakon began to shiver uncontrollably when he placed his hand on the orb and zoomed into taking a closer look at the figure. It was a woman whose raven-black hair danced around her shoulder along with the two dark swords in her hands. The two black swords brought back memories Hakon desperately wanted to forget. He could feel the sweat running down his back as the two women noticed Hakon's breathing getting heavier and heavier. "Elder Hakon." Hakon's mind went totally blank as he didn't even hear the two women calling for him. "It can't be, she's dead, she's dead." He kept mumbling. Meanwhile, the black-armored woman wreaked havoc among the vampires outside. Despite the metal armor she wore from toe to neck, the armor didn't seem to restrict her movements. The two women and the butler saw her cutting the vampires' heads off without using any spells. Suddenly the glass orb cracked as the women looked up. Her eyes met Hakon's before the glass orb completely shattered into pieces. "Everyone leave!" Hakon's sudden shout reverberated through the hall, leaving the vampires stunned. He didn't bother to stay any longer and explain what was happening. Instead, he decided to escape the castle. But just as he was about to take a step toward the door, the metal door in the hall exploded. The force of the explosion sent the metal door crashing onto the vampires. The heavy door crushed a few vampires into a pulpy mess. The vampires jerked around to see a mist of cloud blocking the entrance. A few seconds later, the woman entered the hall through the smoke. The vampires noticed the blood dripping down from her black sword. For a few moments, the vampires remained still like her dark eyes petrified them. Then, quickly the vampires snapped back to reality as they snarled at her, revealing their razor-sharp fangs. "Human scum!" An overly violent vampire leaped at the woman. "Pulch!" The vampire was in mid-air when she swayed her body to the side before swinging her sword. The next moment, the vampire's head separated from his body hit the ground with a sickening thud while the body sprayed blood all over the place. Most of the vampires didn't even realize what just happened. She was too fast. They just saw a blue, and their fellow clansman lost his head. "Twinkle, twinkle, little star," her cold words broke the silence haunting the hall. Hakon's heart jumped out of his heart when he heard these words. Then, losing control over his body, Hakon stumbled back. He almost collapsed if it wasn't for his butler's quick reflex to grab Hakan by his shoulder. "How I wonder what you are." She took a step forward with each word escaping her mouth. "Kill the intruder." The two women shouted at the vampires as the vampires flanked the women from all directions. However, she raised her two swords before they could get closer to her. The swords vibrated, letting out a high-pitched whistling sound penetrated everyone's head. Ugh! Some vampires dropped to their knees, covering their ears. Boom! Suddenly, a bright light shot out of her swords as everyone in the hall, without exception, closed their eyes. Ag! The muffled grunts turned into loud screams of agony. Hakan could feel the temperature in the room skyrocketing. When the whistling sound trailed off, he barely opened his eyes, only to see half of the vampires in the hall were reduced to ashes. The others all squirmed on the floor, crying and moaning in pain. The smell of burning flesh nauseated Hakan. The bright flames dancing around her swords shocked Hakan more than the pile of ashes. Primordial flames. Even from 20 meters away from the woman, Hakan could feel his skin being burnt by the flames. He couldn't keep his gaze locked on the flame as the fire was too bright. Even the sun seemed dim compared to the flames dancing around her sword. Additionally, the flames let out an ominous howling. Up above the world so high, she gracefully walked towards Hakan as the two vampire women poised to attack the black-armored woman. "Huh! Harriet!" Hakan mumbled as he kept walking backward. As she was getting closer to them, the vampires on the ground failed to stop her. That meant saving Elder Hakan has become their responsibility. Hence, the two women closed their eyes as a red mist enveloped them. The next moment, they leaped at Harriet from the stage, showing their razor-sharp fangs. The bloodlust in their eyes made their eyes glow like rubies. The two women were extremely fast as they left after images on the stage. Like a diamond in the sky. Just as they were in mid-air, Harriet finished her rhyme. The two women were fast, but Harriet was faster. Finally, she just swung her sword, sending a crescent wave of light flames. The only primordial flame that stood beside the dark flames in the power hierarchy. Hakan witnessed Saber's powerful minions burnt to ashes in a mere moment right before his eyes. The two women didn't even have time to scream before they turned into nothing but ashes. Harriet did not stop with killing the two women. Instead, she swirled, sending a stream of light flames out of her swords. Arg! The rest of the vampires' growls and moans were abruptly cut short as they all turned into piles of ashes. 52 vampires were obliterated in a few moments. Who are you?" The butler who stood beside Hakan stuttered. 25 years ago, what did I tell you?" Harriet asked Hakan. Instead of responding to the butler's question, Hakan's face turned paler than usual as he panted. Whoosh! Harriet raised her sword, pointing at the butler, and burnt him to ashes by firing a quick bolt of light flame. The fire burnt not only the butler but also Hakan's silk robes. Fearing for his life, he stood naked before her. "What did I tell you?" She uttered each word with frightening killing intent. No. Hakan was one of the most powerful elder vampires yet in front of her. He felt so powerless and couldn't control his body from shivering. Hakan still had nightmares about what happened 25 years ago. Harriet Hunt. Hakan wished to wake up whenever he went to bed without recalling the name. Harriet Hunt was why the vampires called the 9th month of the year the Black Month. Once upon a time, Ar was full of his kind. Until an elder vampire tried to satiate his hunger with the blood of one of the Hunt sisters. Little did the elder vampire know that his actions would get the attention of the most feared woman in all of Ar, Harriet Hunt. She relentlessly hunted his kind to near extinction in a month of time. Hakan and a few others were the only survivors, not because they escaped but because Sky Hall brokered peace between Harriet and the council. "I told you," she reached the stage with a swift leap. Seeing her up close, he stumbled back and fell to the floor. "If you or any of your kind even think of hurting my family, I would hunt you down." Chapter 527 Kidnapping Ghost. Having no idea, his mother just wiped off Hakan and his horde of vampires who were ordered to hunt him down. Michael waited for Corey's men to attack the ship he was on. The storm raged on, forcing them to hold onto the wooden rails. The howling wind partnered up with the heavy rain to create a tornado that grew in size with each passing second. "We have to get down." Michael had to raise his voice to make his words reach Olivia's ears. "Go!" Michael shouted at her. However, the order wasn't only for her but for Corey's men as well. Boom! The thunderclap resonated in the ocean, followed by the lightning crack that looked as though it was splitting open the sky itself. Olivia quickly manipulated the arch energy beneath her feet to fly towards the latch on the ship's center. Boom! Another loud booming sounded throughout the ocean, but this time, there was no lightning. Instead, the entire ship trembled violently as Olivia was thrown off onto the wet floor. "We are under attack!" Michael shouted, dashing at Olivia. "Quick, quick, quick!" He helped her up while keeping his head down. Boom! 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 Corey's men bombarded the ship relentlessly. "What's happening?" Olivia shouted. "Someone's attacking the ship." As Michael shouted, Olivia looked over his shoulder to see a man-of-war slowly emerging through the hazy mist created by the storm. Everyone around them grew darker because of the man-of-war's shadow. Compared to the huge man-of-war, their merchant ship looked minuscule. Michael turned around, looking at the man-of-war slowly getting closer to their merchant ship. "She really want to surprise me," Michael thought while looking at the man-of-war slowly positioning itself adjacent to the merchant ship so they could jump on board. Meanwhile, the crews who went to rest down decks rushed outside, stunned by the sight of the man-of-war. The crew shuddered. "Oh my God! A man-o'-war! Where is the captain? What are we gonna do? They are onboarding us." Michael saw several grappling hooks being thrown at their ship, and a few of them got stuck to the rails. Soon, the crew of man-of-war reached their ship, sliding through the ropes attached to the grappling hooks. In a few moments, the empty upper deck became crowded with the crews of both ships. The merchant ship crew reluctantly unsheathed their swords, which were rusty and broken. Since the merchant ship traveled between the cultivation continents, they barely had any attacks. Thus, the crew didn't bother to purchase new swords or spells. The storm seemed to have slowed down thanks to the man-of-war shielding them from the raging storm. The merchant ship crew stared at Michael, expecting him to fight the intruders, including the captain who just arrived at the scene. Instead, the man couldn't even stand firm on the ground as he swayed like a tree in the wind. He was thin as a twig, and Michael wondered how he managed to become a captain. Boom! Suddenly, a sturdy man jumped down onto the ship, making the ship violently sway left and right. Contrary to the merchant ship captain, the man who just jumped the ship looked taller and bulkier than an average human. His exposed upper body was riddled with Mayan tattoos just like Corey. The man had dark brown eyes complementing his brown curly hair. "Give me that man without resisting, and I will spare your lives." The man spoke in a thick accent and pointed at Michael. Olivia was terrified by his words. Not a day passed since the Adrisal massacre, yet she saw someone else asking for Ghost. "Who are you?" Michael asked, slowly helping Olivia to her feet. "Come with us." Instead of revealing his identity, the tan-skin warrior replied to Michael, "Otherwise, we will sink everyone to the fucking bottom." "I doubt there are any core formation cultivators among the crew to fly away." The man snickered. He was right. As far as Michael could see, except for him and Olivia, not a single one was above the body refining stage. "Do I have to believe that you would spare them if I agreed to come with you?" Michael asked, tilting his head. "You don't have a choice, Ghost," as the man said. Michael heard creaking noises resonating in the air. He turned his head to see the countless cannons of the man-of-war slowly poking out. "Who are you people? What do you want with him?" Olivia snarled. She had enough of people threatening her and Ghost for one day. She was about to cast a spell as Michael sensed the arch energy around him fluctuating. But he quickly squeezed her hand. "We have seen enough deaths," Michael whispered. Then he looked back at the man while the merchant ship crew stared at Michael, wordlessly begging him to go with them and save their lives. "You got me," Michael threw his arms in the sky. "Teacher!" Olivia growled as she grabbed his hands. Michael turned out with a gentle smile on his face. "I survived worse. Just quit whining and reach home safe." Michael squeezed her arm as a gesture of reassuring her before stepping toward the pirates. When Michael reached his side, the man's gaze swept across the ship. "If you wish to see him alive, don't tell anyone about this," he directed his gaze at Olivia. "Trust me when I say this, people. If you breathe a word about this, we will kill you and your kin." According to Michael's plan, the pirates had no idea Ghost is the Dark Lord. As far as they were concerned, the Dark Lord ordered Corey to capture him, and Corey conveyed the order to them. Even Corey thought Ghost was one of the Dark Lord's targets. "Listen to them. Do not speak a word of it." Olivia didn't nod but stared at him with a blank mind. She only snapped back to reality when the man grabbed Ghost by his collar and leaped back to the man-of-war. By that time, their figures had disappeared from their sight. After Ghost left the deck, the crew members sighed in relief. Except for Olivia, everyone seemed rather happy. Back on the man of war's upper deck, Michael was surrounded by several pirates with scimitars. They all stared at him menacingly as the captain showed him towards the opened latch on the ship's center. "Chill out, bro. I am walking." Michael sped up his pace. Soon, the ship began to move, but he couldn't watch over the merchant ship or Olivia as he was pushed down the ladder leading to the dark lower decks of the ship. The strong stench of rum and moth made him twitch his nose. The pirate captain walked behind him, leading him further into the dimly lit corridors until they reached a tiny room with no windows. Instead, the room had a tiny bed, a hand-size hole on the wall to enable wind flow, and a weakly burning candle. The room was barely 4 feet wide, and if Michael bounced, he would hit his head on the ceiling. But on the other hand, the bed sheets looked ancient, yellowish, and drenched in fluids that Michael didn't even want to guess what. "Enjoy your stay, Lord," the man chuckled evilly before shoving Michael into the room and closing the door behind him. Michael waited until the footsteps completely went quiet before establishing a connection with Corey. "Is it done?" Michael thickened his voice and asked Corey. "Yes, my lord. My men have captured Ghost without any casualties, as you ordered." "What's your next order, my lord?" "Where are you right now?" Instead of giving Corey her next orders, Michael asked about her whereabouts. "Still following the target, my lord," Corey said. As per Michael's orders, Corey delayed the ship Sabrina and the vampires on for a week by destroying the mask with chain shots. Corey and her men plundered the ship, intending to delay their journey. Afterward, Michael asked Corey to leave them alone. It took the vampires another week to repair their ship before resuming their journey. Corey had been following the vampires for 4 days by now. "They are sailing away from the southern continent, my lord." "Where is Ghost now?" Michael asked, pretending not to know anything about Ghost's location. "In the Crystal Ocean, my lord." "How long do you think it takes for your men to reach your target?" Corey's voice trailed off as Michael heard the sound of papers ruffling. A few seconds later, she responded. "A day if the wind's with them and day and a half if it isn't." Michael rubbed his chin for a moment. "Hey, Race, what you're gonna do? Order your men to sail to your location, and then follow the target together. When the target anchors somewhere, throw Ghost over to the target." "My lord, what if they reach their destination before my men could reach me?" "Then note the location and inform me right away. Remember, no matter what, do not lose them," Michael coldly said to Corey. "Understood, my lord. And tell your men to stay away from Ghost." "As you wish, my lord." Michael was glad to hear Corey abiding by his orders without asking a question. After dealing with Sabrina and the key, Michael decided to deal with the 2 pirate lords. Currently, Pirate Lord Vance rejected Michael's offer to join his army, which was a pretty stupid move if one asked Michael. The most powerful pirate Lord Blackmane was yet to be found by Corey, and after which, Michael would give him the same offer he gave Vance. Michael would be forced to destroy them if they rejected his generous offer. He had so many things to do, and playing tug-of-war with weaklings such as Vance was not something he would spend more time on. "It seems like I have some time to kill." After closing the connection with Corey, Michael turned his focus to the dirty bed beside him. He accessed his system storage to take out a thick blanket and put it on the bed. Only then did he lunge onto the bed. After a long few days of planning and killing, Michael decided to get some sleep. However, he doubted he would get any sleep or rest after reaching where the vampires were traveling to. Chapter 528 Caged Sabrina. "It's kinda relaxing." Michael snuggled under the warm blanket, talking to Gaia through the earpiece. He felt like a teenager who talks to his girlfriend hiding under the blanket. "What's relaxing?" asked Gaia. "Everything, snake. The storm outside, this cozy room, the warm blanket, everything. Enjoy while it lasts. Who knows what would happen after you get to Sabrina?" Michael heaved a long breath of sigh, staring at the moth-covered ceiling. "By the way, why aren't you going as the Dark Lord?" Gaia asked. "I could, but if I did, Sabrina wouldn't open up to the Dark Lord. We need to know more information about the key. If the vampires are keeping her alive, it means they can't get to the key without her. Since I saved her and her mother, she has a soft spot for Ghost. I can use that to get to know more about the key. Do you have everything you need?" "You said you broke your swords fighting the elder vampire. I already told Corey to order her men to give me a pair of swords." "I can make do with that until we go to the aqua auction. Don't be stupid. I'll put 2 swords in the space ring. Take them with you." Gaia raised her voice, yelling at him like a concerned mother. "Oh!" Michael quickly sent a sliver of arch energy to the silver ring on his middle finger as the ring began to glow dimly. Then a pair of swords materialized above him and floated in the air. Each of the two identical swords had a long, thick, warped blade made of iron held by a grip wrapped in shiny red-scaled leather. With a single sharp edge, the sword would protect him from incoming blows while also giving him the ability to shred his enemies to pieces. The blade had a jagged, twisted crossguard, offering plenty of protection to his hands and thus his life. Although the crossguard had a decorative crow head on each side, the cost of forging the swords must have been high. A massive pommel was decorated with gilded linings. No expense was spared for the gorgeous swords in front of him. The blade itself was engraved as countless symbols have been delicately etched into the blade, which only added to the elegance of this weapon and its cost. Where did you get them? Michael was surprised by the swords. Although he liked the black swords more because he liked black, the two silver swords weren't inferior to his previous two swords by any means. Where else? From Maze Roth Armory. Do you know they have an entire hall filled with old used weapons the students could use for free? Those fuckers are really rich and resourceful. He couldn't believe they threw these two beautiful swords into the waste room and let the students take them for free. If these two swords were to be used for free, imagine the things in their protected vault. It would be nice to rob them blind one day, Michael exhaled. To others, earning 20 to 25 million a month was a huge deal. Not even many nobles would earn that much. However, compared to Amazaroth, the noble families in Ar, and some cultivators such as Hendrix, he was poor as a sewer rat. Nonetheless, it would soon change when the scarcity of alchemists hit the two continents like a raging tsunami. The vampires did him a huge favor by killing 80% of the alchemists in Elon and Azer. Besides, he ended Gabriel's life. Thus, his value just skyrocketed through the roof. The exclusive clients of Gabriel would have to look for another alchemist and Michael would be their only choice. He already decided to raise the prices since it was the logical thing to do. We are still way weaker than our enemies. Just get to the soul refining stage quicker, Snake. Not all of them can get stronger by killing people, my dear Michael, she hissed. What if we both travel to the treacherous ocean one more time? The last time I went there with Layla, I was so weak. If we both reached the soul refining stage and went there, we could dominate the place. Many young masters such as Noah wouldn't revisit a place that they went to while they were weak. They would struggle and depend on their luck to survive the place. But after surviving, they wouldn't return to the place. However, Michael planned to visit the treacherous ocean. Now he had more tools and was stronger than he was when he last visited. He was confident that he could dominate the treacherous ocean and harvest all the resources there to get stronger. Why not? I'll be like a post-engagement honeymoon, Gaia chuckled. Oh shit, I have to go meet Gilrine. Suddenly Gaia remembered she had to accompany Gilrine to the Black Forest. Alright, be safe. I'll get some sleep and I'll update you after I reach the destination. Don't die on me, okay? Just get home safe with the key human. Umua, I love you, Gaia kissed him. I love you too, Gaia, Michael softly said before cutting the connection between them. After everything was said and done, Michael closed his eyes, trying to get some sleep. While Michael was sleeping peacefully, Sabrina curled into a ball on the floor, trying to fight the cold. Unfortunately, she was stammering in the cold and tried to cover her hands and legs with her long silver robes. The vampires kept her in a cage below decks. As far as she could see, there was nothing but pitch blackness. The water leaked through the holes and gaps above her and drenched her dress. Rowena, Noah, where are you? Sabrina sobbed. She may be strong but she was still young and innocent. So when Peyton recruited her to chase down Victor, she thought it would give her real-world experience. Sabina didn't believe she could become a fearless warrior by studying books and fighting dummies in Holy Trident Academy. Instead, she wanted to fight real enemies and get a real battle experience like her brother Noah. However, everything changed when a monster of a man attacked their safe house in the southern continent. Even in her current condition, where they caged her like an animal and fed her only once every 2 days, she thought about Peyton. She slowly opened her palm as a dim golden light brightened her face. Her puffy eyes, due to sobbing so much and paleness, became visible in the light. Until recently, Sabrina was oblivious to the golden rune on her right palm. However, the rune began to glow when she came across an ancient parchment in a dungeon that appeared in Kingdom Mohan. The parchment contained words written in an ancient language. Unfortunately, she couldn't make out any words except the name Aurora, which was written in their language. Sabrina wanted to take the parchment to her elders in Holy Trident, but the parchment turned into a flash of light and entered her brain. Ever since then, Sabrina could recall the way to something called the key. She only shared the information with her teacher at Holy Trident Academy. Little did she know that her teacher was an elder vampire disguised as a teacher in Holy Trident. Because of him, Sabrina was captured by the vampires and forced to show them the way to the key. Otherwise, they threatened Sabrina by telling her they would massacre her family overnight. Now she had no choice but to guide them through the maze to get to the key. Even if it cost her her life, she wouldn't let anything happen to her family. But deep down, she wished either Rowena or Noah would come and save her from the monsters above her. "I want my big brother." She sobbed like a little girl in fear and despair. Creak. She shuddered when she heard the door creak open as she saw the light peeking through the door to her cage. "Get up, bitch." The island is nearby. A figure dressed in black robes rattled the cage with the wooden stick he used to beat Sabrina for fun. Even in the pitch-black darkness, she could see his ruby-red eyes menacingly looking at her. He licked his lips as Sabrina shuddered. She had seen him bite a youngster's neck and drink all his blood until the youngster was mummified. She could still feel the pain in her back due to the beating he had given her a few days ago. Up," she stuttered as she tried to pick herself up. But the shackles around her wrist made standing up a difficult task. Meanwhile, the vampire took the keychain hanging on his waist and unlocked Sabrina's cage. As soon as he opened the cage door, he kicked Sabrina in the gut with enough force to make her throw up blood. "Ah, the smell of blood," the vampire licked his lips again. "Cough, cough." Sabrina kept coughing up blood. Her vision went blue because of the pain in her stomach. The next moment, he grabbed her hair and dragged her out of the cage. Thud. The vampire leaped through the opening and threw Sabrina onto the wooden rails when they reached under the open latch. Sabrina's eyes hurt as she saw the daylight after a long time. As her vision cleared, she noticed several black-robed figures surrounding her. Remove her shackles. If she tried to escape, cut her arms. She jerked her head right to see a tall, lean and mean-looking man walking towards her. Contrary to the rest, he didn't cover his head with a dark cloak. So she could clearly see his pale oval face, crimson-red eyes, and the two fangs that protruded when he grinned like a devil. Hearing the man's question, the one who dragged Sabrina to the upper deck stepped toward her. "Please try to escape." He slowly ran his wooden stick across Sabrina's face. Under the vampire's gazes, he grabbed the iron shackles around her wrist. When he touched the shackles, they just vanished into thin air. "Elijah, look there!" Suddenly, the vampire stopped feeling her face with his wooden stick when they heard the vampire in the crow nest. Sabrina saw the vampires looking behind her. Because of the beating she received, she was terrified even to move an inch. Still, she looked over her shoulder through the gap between the wooden rails to see a large man-of-war ship sailing in their direction. Instead of anchoring the ship and jumping onto the tiny sandy island in front of them, they just stared at the man-of-war. Chapter 529. Big Brother Michael to the rescue. "Get to the island," the tall greater vampire ordered his minions as they quickly leaped from the ship to the island with a swift jump. "Come here, bitch." "Ah!" Sabrina shouted as the vampire with the wooden stick grabbed her messy golden hair. In a few moments, all the 30 vampires landed on the tiny empty island floating in the sea. Except for the vampires and Sabrina, there was only a coconut tree in the center. Other than that, not even crabs inhabited the island. "Is this the place?" The tall vampire put on his cloak as the clouds moved away, no longer obstructing the sunlight. "If they tried anything funny, board them and kill them," the tall greater vampire named Elijah said, looking at the approaching man-of-war. He then slowly moved his gaze to Sabrina, who was still under the hold of Zeke. "Get her to work," Elijah ordered Zeke, who slowly licked Sabrina's neck with a devilish grin. Elijah felt proud of Zeke because just in a few weeks, he broke Sabrina's warrior spirit. Not only that, but he also controlled his bloodlust. Zeke was the most violent and bloodthirsty vampire among everyone on the island. Elijah had lost count of how many humans and beast men Zeke bought from the slave market just to torture and drink their blood. Sabrina squirmed, trying to escape Zeke's hold only to get slapped by Zeke. A bright light flashed across her eyes as everything became blurry because of the slap. The vampires meticulously tortured her for the last few weeks to break her warrior spirit. Of course, they couldn't destroy it completely, but they certainly broke it. Thus, Sabrina obeyed their orders like a doll without showing any kind of resistance. Zeke grabbed her neck without giving her time to steady herself. "Where to?" Sabrina pointed at the lone coconut tree in the center. While getting pushed towards the tree, she prayed deep down someone from the approaching man-of-war would save her from the vampires. But after looking at the 30 vampires around her, she just sighed inside. She had witnessed how they cast spells and used arch-energy inside the void line. The ability to use arch-energy made the vampires absolute gods in the southern continent. So Sabrina knew even if the entire crew of Man of War chose to attack them, the vampires would feast on them in a couple of minutes. At that moment, Sabrina would give anything to see her big brother or big sister. So while the Man of War was slowly sailing towards them, Sabrina went to the coconut tree. As she got closer to the tree, the brighter the rune glowed on her palm. Surprisingly, when she approached the coconut tree, the island trembled slightly. Then, a rune resembling the letter D slowly appeared on the tree. It glowed in golden color and pulsated powerful energy. The energy was nothing like they had ever felt. Each time it pulsated, a shock wave swept across the island. After every pulse of energy, they heard a whistling sound resonating on the island. Meanwhile, the Man of War reached close enough to cast its shadow on the island. The vampires were poised to leap onto the Man of War, but instead, they saw a hook being fired onto the island from one of the upper deck cannons. Elijah moved to the front expecting a battle. He waited for the humans to attack them, licking his lips. Contrary to his expectations, he saw a dark-robed human sliding through the rope towards them. For a moment, Elijah mistook the human for a vampire. Just like them, he dressed in full black, his long black coat fluttering in the wind. He had a beard that was neither too busy nor too stubble, and the most eye-catching feature about him was the two swords crisscrossed on his back, forming an X behind his back. As he was sliding towards them, he looked over his shoulder and showed his middle finger to the Man of War. As a result of his offensive gesture, someone from the upper deck cut the rope. They all expected the young man to fall into the water, but instead, they saw him leap into the air, roll, and land comfortably on the sandy shore like a cat. He cracked his neck, dusted the sand on his black robes, and looked at the vampires lining in front of him. When his gaze swept across them, Elijah saw a tinge of surprise in his eyes, especially when he saw Sabrina. "Ghost!" Sabrina shouted in joy when she saw a familiar face. Without her control, her legs dashed at him only to get pulled back by Zeke by her hair. The moment Michael saw Zeke slap Sabrina, something primal awoke in him. Something deep down told Michael to cut Zeke into pieces and throw him into the sea. Kill him. While Zeke was dragging Sabrina to the tree by pulling her hair, Elijah ordered the others to kill Michael. Michael, on the other hand, couldn't take his eyes off Sabrina. His hatred for the Guardian Guild reached another level. They knew Sabrina was with the vampires, yet they didn't even raise a finger. For them, the key was more important than Sabrina's life. Just by looking at her bruises and the messy state of Sabrina, Michael could guess what she went through. Even in front of him, the vampire handled her like she was a rag doll. "Don't you idiots know who she is?" Michael asked Elijah instead of surrendering to his bloodlust. "I said kill him." Without answering Michael, Elijah growled at the vampires, revealing his fangs and crimson-red eyes to Michael. "Vampires," Michael pretended to be surprised. "Now you're gonna quench our thirst," Elijah menacingly threatened Michael. "I don't know why you bloodsuckers kidnapped me here, but I'm really not in the mood for your games." Elijah was surprised, and it was visible in his eyes. He quickly raised his arm, wordlessly ordering the vampires to halt their steps. "We didn't bring you here," Elijah coldly said. "I think you guys have communication problems." "The vampires in that ship said you wanted me here," Elijah frowned, looking at the Man of War sailing away from them. Ghost didn't look like he was lying. Of course, the vampires couldn't see through his lies because he was trained to lie convincingly. "Don't kill him. Just break his bones," Elijah ordered them with a nonchalant wave. "Diddle diddle." As the vampires walked toward him, licking their lips, Michael cracked his neck. His words sounded funny to some but murderous to many. Meanwhile, Zeke stopped dragging Sabrina through the sand to watch what would happen to Ghost. Sabrina's heart started to pound against her chest, looking at the two vampires getting close to Ghost. "We are so little. Pulch. Pulch." The two vampires who extended their hands towards Michael suddenly put their hands down. Elijah saw the two just standing before him without moving an inch. When the vampires looked at Ghost, he had bloody silver swords in each hand. It happened so fast that many didn't even see him unsheath his swords. Sabrina's eyes went wide as the two heads hit the sand while the headless bodies staggered around, spraying blood through the neck. As a result, the vampires shuddered. "Blood thorns. Blood bolt." Sabrina saw the vampires near her raise their hands and cast spells. However, nothing happened. The vampires looked just as confused as Sabrina and Zeke. Seeing the dumbfounded look on their faces, Michael snickered. The moment Michael saw the island, he paid the system to scan the island for anomalies. Although the system said its level was too low to provide him the full information about the island, it notified him about the strange energy surrounding it. The energy waves radiated by the island nullified any arch-energy or celestial energy in the atmosphere around the island. So even Michael had to pay 50,000 Baddus points to use arch-energy inside the island. Thus, he knew the vampires wouldn't be able to use arch-energy while they were on the island. Because they had no way of using arch-energy, the vampires lost all their chances of winning against him. "You shouldn't have brought me here." Michael flicked his swords, scattering the blood on the blade to the sword. After the two vampires failed to cast the spell, Elijah tried to circulate the arch-energy in his body but to no avail. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't feel any arch-energy in his body. To be exact, he couldn't feel the arch-energy or manipulate it. "I am so sick of you bloodsuckers." Michael swung his sword at the three vampires in front of him. Two of them evaded the swing by crouching down, but the one who had slow reflexes lost his head to Michael's sword. Ah! But the two who crouched down weren't lucky either. Michael kicked the sand into their eyes. When they instinctively covered their eyes, Michael cut their heads like pruning weeds. Their heads flew into the air as Michael kicked their heads with a swift, stylish spinning hook kick. The vampires were stunned by his speed and skill. In a few seconds, he killed 4 vampires. Shockingly, the vampires were highly trained by Lenora, one of the elder vampires who had a seat on the council. "I'll rip you to pieces." Instead of ordering his minions to kill Ghost, Elijah dashed at Michael to kill him by himself. Whoosh! Ghost threw his sword at Elijah, but Elijah caught the sword easily. However, before Elijah could make a snarky comment, he saw Ghost flick his wrist as a vial dropped into his arm from his sleeves. Clang! Elijah was too late to stop Ghost as he threw the vial at the dead bodies on the ground with enough force to break the vial into pieces. As soon as the vial was broken, Elijah noticed a green mist emerge from the ground. Arg! Shit, it burns. Arg! Soon the vampires began to scream and shout, including Zeke, who dropped to the ground, screaming in agony. Surprisingly, Sabrina felt nothing. She even saw Elijah scratching his eyes and growling on the ground. Instead of killing the vampires near him, Sabrina saw Ghost walking towards Zeke. Noah might be his archenemy, but Sabrina was nothing but nice to him. She always treated him warm and friendly, even after Michael beat the crap out of Andrews. By slapping Sabrina in front of him, Zeke punched his ticket to hell. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.